Jasmine Elliott was still holding the county's red notice when Brian laughed. It wasn't a loud laugh. That would have been easier to answer. He leaned back in their father's dining chair, looked at the paper in her hand, and let out one dry breath through his nose. 24,000, he said, for that little shack. Noah kept his eyes on the parcel list spread across the table. He had already drawn a neat blue line under the acreage he planned to sell. Beside him sat a yellow folder containing the equipment titles. The loader, 2 haul trucks, the crusher, and the newer excavator had all gone to the brothers. Jasmine had received a key. It lay beside her elbow on a ring made from bent wire. A square aluminum tag hung from it. Scale Office was stamped into the metal, though years of rubbing against other keys had nearly erased the word office. The estate attorney had left 10 minutes earlier. She had explained the distributions, answered Noah's questions, and reminded all 3 of them that unpaid county charges followed the property. Then she had carried her briefcase out to her car, leaving Mark Elliott's grown children alone in the house where none of them lived anymore. Jasmine read the notice again. The county had declared the old Quarry office unsafe after a roof inspection. Back taxes, code costs, penalties, and an old utility balance had been added together. Unless the amount was paid before the scheduled tax sale, the property could be taken. The date was 8 weeks away. Brian reached for the notice. Jasmine folded it before he could touch it. "I can read," she said. "I didn't say you couldn't. You made a sound. I made a sound because Dad left you a bill with a roof." Noah glanced up. "Can we keep this useful?" Brian looked at him. "I'm being useful." "No, you're enjoying yourself." That quieted him, though only for a moment. Their father's dining room had become a sorting room since his death. Mark's old mail sat in grocery bags near the wall. Tools that had been found in the garage filled 2 cardboard boxes by the door. 3 coffee mugs remained on the table because everyone kept forgetting to take them to the kitchen. Jasmine stared at the brown mark inside the mug nearest her. Mark had used it every morning. It said, "Best boss in Carbon County." Though Brian had bought it as a joke after one especially bad week at the quarry, she looked away before either brother noticed. Noah tapped the parcel sheet with his pen. "The office sits beside the main entrance. That matters if I'm selling the land." "You're selling already?" Jasmine asked. "I'm talking to someone. You got the papers today." I knew what Dad intended. Jasmine looked at the blue line beneath Noah's parcel numbers. The land assigned to him covered the north side of the quarry and part of the bench above it. Brian had received the southern parcels in the equipment yard. Together, the brothers controlled 52 acres of quarry ground, along with everything that looked capable of making money. Her own page described a narrow office parcel beside North Main Street. The condemned building, the inactive truck scale, and the contents left inside. "What contents?" she asked. Brian shrugged. "Mouse nests, probably." "There are records?" Noah said. "Old tickets and maintenance books." "How do you know?" "Dad never threw anything away." Brian slid the wire-ringed key toward Jasmine with one finger. "There you go. Family archives." She stopped the key before it fell from the table. Mark had taught all 3 children to work, but not in the same way. Noah learned bids and contracts. Brian learned the machines. Jasmine learned whatever was left when the men were busy. At first, that meant sweeping the scale office and carrying paper rolls from the storage cabinet. Later, Mark showed her how to patch a leaking window, replace a switch, and free a frozen latch without snapping it. He never called those things important. He simply stood beside her until she could do them alone. When she asked for regular work at the quarry, he always found a reason to wait after the next contract. When the office settles down, let's get through winter. Winter's passed. She took bookkeeping jobs and helper and did repair work for neighbors on weekends. Noah became the son who understood the business. Brian became the son who could keep the crusher running with a wrench and an hour of swearing. Jasmine remained the person Mark called when the office sink leaked. Now, the leaking office was hers. Noah gathered the parcel pages into one stack. "I can solve this." Brian gave him a suspicious look. "How?" "We include the office parcel in the sale. The buyer clears it. Jasmine doesn't pay the county, and she doesn't get stuck with a building she can't use." Jasmine kept her hand on the key. "What would I get?" Noah paused. It was a small pause, but she heard the answer inside it. "We'd have to see what it costs to absorb the bill," he said. "So, I'd get nothing. You'd get rid of the debt. It isn't debt yet. It becomes debt the moment you accept the property." "The will already gave it to her," Brian said. She accepted when she signed. He sounded pleased to contribute that detail. Jasmine had signed because the attorney placed the paper in front of her and showed her Mark's name at the bottom of the will. She had seen her father's familiar blocky signature and stopped listening for half a minute. When she came back to the room, the office was hers, and her brothers were discussing who would take the excavator. Noah leaned toward her. "I'm not trying to cheat you. I didn't say you were. You're looking at me like I did. I'm looking at you because you made an offer without a number." Brian pushed his chair back. "It's a condemned box. What number do you want?" She met his eyes. "Why did Dad keep it separate?" "He didn't keep it separate. It happened to sit on its own little parcel. The scale's listed with it. Because the scale is beside it. And the records? Because garbage has to go somewhere." Noah put both hands flat on the table. He did that when he wanted everyone to believe he was the calm one. "Jazz, the quarry hasn't shipped a load since Dad got sick. The permits are old. Half the equipment needs work, and the county wants the front cleaned up. There's no hidden business waiting in that office." She hadn't said there was. The fact that he answered the thought made her look at him differently. Noah noticed. He wished at once that he had chosen another phrase, but he was already thinking about the prospective buyer, who wanted clear access from North Main Street. The office was small. The problem was small. He believed Jasmine's attachment would also become small once she saw the roof. Brian believed something simpler. Their father had left each child what suited them. He had received machines. Noah had received land. Jasmine had received the room where she used to make coffee and file tickets. To him, the will had put the family back in its proper order. Jasmine didn't know what Mark had intended. That was the part none of them understood. She stood and put the key in her coat pocket. "I'm going to look at it." Brian checked the window. Fine snow had begun tapping against the glass. "Now?" "It's 3 miles away." "The power's off." "I know. The county posted it." "I know that too." Noah rose with her. "Don't go inside if the roof's sagging. Are you worried about me or the sale?" His face tightened. Both can be true. That was honest enough to hurt. She carried the red notice and her copy of the estate papers to the front hall. Mark's work jacket still hung from the last hook. It had gray limestone dust in the seams and a small tear near the right pocket. Nobody had claimed it. Jasmine took it down. Brian appeared behind her. "That mine? It was Dad's. I know. I mean, was it listed with your stuff?" She turned with the jacket in her hands. For 1 second, he looked embarrassed. Then the expression closed. "You want it?" she asked. "No." She put it on over her coat. The sleeves were too long, and the cold canvas smelled faintly of diesel and the peppermint candies Mark kept in his pocket. Noah came into the hall carrying the yellow equipment folder. "Text when you leave there." Jasmine opened the front door. "Why?" "So, we know you didn't fall through the floor." She almost told him he hadn't worried where she was for most of the probate process. Instead, she said, "I'll text." Her small car started on the second try. She drove north through Helper with the heater blowing cool air against her hands. Snow gathered along the curb and softened the dark brick storefronts. At the edge of town, North Main Street narrowed beside the old rail line. The quarry entrance appeared past a chain-link fence and a faded sign that still read, "Elliott Aggregate." The gate was secured with a chain, but the office parcel had its own gravel pullout. Weeds stood stiff through the snow. The truck scale ran beside the building like a long metal bridge, its deck pale with rust and limestone dust. The office looked worse than Jasmine remembered. One corner of the roof had peeled upward. Plastic flapped beneath the damaged edge. The front steps leaned away from the door, and a bright Orange County placard covered most of the window. "Unsafe for occupancy." She parked near the scale and stayed in the car until the windshield began to fog. Mark's last winter came back in ordinary pieces, his thermos on the dashboard, his cough in the morning. The way he stood in this same pullout, pointing at the roof and saying it would need attention when the weather cleared. The weather had cleared several times. Nobody had fixed it. Jasmine got out. The wind pushed cold dust across the scale deck. She walked around the building first, looking at the foundation, roof line, and rear wall. The northwest corner had water damage, but the concrete blocks were straight. One window was broken. Another had been covered from inside with plywood. A narrow metal conduit ran from the scale into the building. She crouched and brushed away dead grass. The conduit had surface rust, but it hadn't pulled loose. That surprised her. She followed it to a gray junction box. Mark had wrapped the lid with black electrical tape. The tape was cracked, yet the seal beneath it remained dry. He had maintained the scale after the quarry stopped shipping. She stood and looked through the dirty front window. A desk sat beneath the far wall. Shelves bowed under binders and stacks of paper. The old scale indicator remained mounted beside the interior window, its blank display aimed toward the scale deck. Near it sat the ticket printer. Jasmine remembered the noise it made, a quick mechanical chatter each time a truck was weighed. The driver received one ticket. A duplicate remained on a roll inside the machine. Mark used to check the numbers at the end of each day, running a dusty finger down the column, while Jasmine emptied the trash. The key entered the door lock, but wouldn't turn. She tried again, lifting the handle. Nothing. The top hinge had dropped, forcing the door hard against the frame. She could see it now. Mark had taught her this exact problem on the supply shed when she was 20. Jasmine returned to her car and opened the trunk. Her tool bag was beneath a folded blanket. She took out a flat bar, a small hammer, and a can of penetrating oil. The county placard warned against entry. She wasn't planning to move in that afternoon. She only wanted the door to work. She sprayed the hinge pins and waited while the oil ran black. Then she placed the flat bar beneath the lower corner and lifted gently. The door shifted. She held the pressure with her knee, turned the key, and felt the old lock give. One clean click. It wasn't much. The roof still leaked. The bill still waited. Her brothers still had the useful land and every machine that could cross it. But the door opened for her. Cold air moved out of the office, carrying the smell of wet paper, dust, and old coffee. Jasmine stepped onto the cracked linoleum and kept one hand on the frame until her eyes adjusted. The ticket printer sat where Mark had left it. A paper roll remained inside, protected by its metal cover. Beside it lay a pencil, a box of blank scale tickets, and a handwritten note taped to the desk. Check source code before total. She read the words twice, then took out her phone. Noah had asked for a message when she left. She wasn't leaving yet. Jasmine switched on her flashlight, set her tool bag inside, and pulled the door closed against the snow. The flashlight beam caught a plastic bucket beneath the worst leak. It was full to the rim, with a skin of ice across the top. Another bucket sat under the window. That one had overflowed and left a brown stain spreading through the carpet. Jasmine moved the records first. The shelves held load books, fuel receipts, equipment manuals, and ticket boxes labeled by month. She carried them to the dry side of the room, 6 or 7 at a time. The damp binders were heavier than she expected. Dust stuck to the front of Mark's jacket. Her phone rang while she was dragging a metal cabinet away from the wall. Noah's name appeared on the screen. "You said you'd text," he said. "I'm still here. You went inside?" "The floor's solid. That isn't what the notice says. The notice says the roof edge is unsafe. I'm not under that section." He was silent long enough for her to hear Brian talking near him. "What's he saying?" she asked. "He says don't touch the scale controls." "Why?" "Because they belong to the property, and we don't know what condition they're in. The property belongs to me." "I know that." "Does he?" Brian took the phone. "Don't start pulling wires," he said. "I'm moving paper. You always say that, then Dad would call me, because a breaker tripped." Jasmine looked at the dead scale display. "That happened once. It happened more than once." "No, you blame me more than once." Brian gave a tired little sigh. He used the same sound whenever she challenged his memory. For years, it had been enough to make her search her own mind for a mistake. "You need anything?" he asked. The question came so casually that she answered before considering it. "A ladder and a tarp. The blue tarp in the equipment shed should be big enough. That's on my parcel. I'm not claiming the shed. I want to borrow a tarp. I'm not there. You're with Noah. That doesn't put me at the quarry. Can I get it myself?" "No." The answer was immediate. Jasmine set one hand on the cabinet. "I know the gate code. I'm changing the gate code. Why? Insurance. Until we sort out who's allowed where. We've all been allowed there our whole lives. It isn't Dad's place now." The words settled between them. Brian had meant the quarry. Jasmine heard something larger. Noah took the phone back. "I'll bring you something tomorrow. The snow's coming through now. Then leave. You can't fix a roof in the dark." She looked at the wet binders on the floor. "I'm not asking you to fix it. I didn't say you were. You said you could solve this. I guess that only applies if I give it to you. Jazz?" She ended the call. For several seconds she stood with the phone in her hand. Then she sent Noah the message he had requested. "I'm safe. I'm staying another hour." That was how things usually went with her brothers. They withheld something, then worried about the trouble created by its absence. Jasmine would find a way around the trouble. Later, Noah would describe the outcome as everyone working together. She opened her contacts and stopped at Shelby Cook's name. Shelby owned a stone yard south of town. She sold gravel, pavers, retaining wall blocks, and the pale crushed limestone people used on rural driveways. When Mark's quarry was operating, Shelby's trucks came across the scale several times a week. Jasmine knew her because Mark disliked email. For nearly 5 years, he had forwarded Shelby's orders to Jasmine, usually with no greeting and no instructions beyond. "Can you clean this up?" Jasmine turned his notes into invoices, corrected delivery addresses, and called Shelby when loads ran late. She had never been employed by the quarry. She simply helped. Her thumb remained above Shelby's number. Asking would mean explaining why the office was hers. That would lead to questions about the rest of the estate. People in Helper had known the Elliott family too long to hear half an answer. Another drop struck the carpet. Jasmine called. Shelby answered over the sound of a diesel engine. "Cook Stone, it's Jasmine. Jasmine, Elliott, yes." The engine noise faded. Shelby's voice softened. "How are you doing?" "I need a tarp." There was a pause. "All right. And maybe a ladder. How tall?" "Tall enough to reach a one-story roof." "That's still a range? 12 feet? Where are you?" "At the old scale office." "What are you doing there?" "It's mine now." Shelby didn't speak for a moment. Jasmine could picture her turning that answer over, comparing the little office with the acres and equipment everyone knew Mark had owned. "All right," Shelby said again. This time, it meant something different. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. You don't have to come yourself. I'm already in the truck." The call ended before Jasmine could offer another escape. She continued sorting. The desk drawers held pens, bolts, rubber bands, and packets of peppermint candy hardened into one solid lump. In the bottom drawer, she found a ring of small keys. Mark had labeled each one with masking tape. Printer, file, panel. The file key opened the tall cabinet she had moved. Inside were employee timesheets and maintenance forms arranged by year. The newest folder ended 6 months before Mark died. Jasmine sat in his chair and opened it. Brian's equipment hours filled several pages. Jeffrey Dunn's scale shifts appeared less often, mostly during busy weeks. Noah's name wasn't on the timesheets because he had been paid through the office. Behind the payroll forms were maintenance sheets. Jasmine recognized her handwriting before she saw her name. Replaced office sink valve, sealed west window, cleaned printer feed, reset scale display after outage. Each entry carried a date, the materials used, and her initials. Mark had written approved beside everyone. There was no amount in the labor column. She turned back through the folder. The same pattern continued. Parts were reimbursed when she remembered to give him a receipt. Her time was left blank. She had prepared these forms herself. She knew that, but she had never seen them collected together. Mark had asked her to help, and she had come. If he called during dinner, she came afterward. If he needed invoices on a Sunday, she drove to the office. Each time she believed the next request might become a real place beside him. She had made it very easy for him to depend on her without ever choosing her. A truck horn sounded outside. Jasmine closed the folder and returned it to the cabinet. Shelby parked beside her car in a white flatbed truck marked Cook Stone and Yard. A folded tarp and an extension ladder were strapped behind the cab. She climbed down wearing insulated coveralls and work boots with white stone dust around the soles. At 42, Shelby moved with the quick economy of someone who spent all day answering questions while carrying things. She looked at the orange notice, then at Jasmine. "You went in anyway. I stayed away from the bad corner. That's what people say before a ceiling comes down. The ceiling isn't coming down." Shelby walked past her and tested the front step with one boot. It shifted. "That's not encouraging. The foundation's straight. You've been here half an hour, and you're defending it already." Jasmine took the back end of the ladder. "I called for a tarp, not an inspection." "You called the wrong woman." They carried the ladder around the building. Shelby refused to place it until they had walked the ground twice and found a patch clear of ice. The wind had strengthened. It snapped the loose roofing sheet against the boards beneath it. Shelby studied the roof from below. "We're not climbing that tonight. I can reach the edge from the ladder, and then the wind can lift you over North Main Street. If we leave it open, More water gets in. Then we cover it from the side. Shelby brought out a coil of rope, 2 clamps, and a canvas tool roll. They spread the tarp on the gravel and tied ropes through the corner grommets. Jasmine climbed only high enough to guide one edge over the damaged section with a long-handled rake. It took 4 attempts. The first throw slid back. The second caught on an exposed nail. On the third, the wind folded the tarp around the rake. Brian would have laughed. Noah would have taken the rope from her and called that helping. Shelby only said, again. On the 4th attempt, the tarp crossed the roof. They pulled it flat from opposite sides, then anchored the ropes to the rear fence posts and 2 concrete parking stops. It wasn't a repair. It was ugly and temporary. It also stopped the snow from entering. Inside, Shelby aimed her flashlight at the ceiling, while Jasmine emptied the frozen bucket outdoors. "You've got mold in the back corner," Shelby said. "That carpet has to go. Window needs boarding tonight. Is there power? Shut off. Water? Probably shut off too. Heat? There's a wall unit." Shelby looked at her. "I didn't say it worked," Jasmine said. Shelby stepped behind the desk. Her light paused on the scale indicator and printer. Mark kept the old system. He kept everything. No, he replaced plenty. He just kept the things he trusted. The remark landed close to the thought Jasmine had been avoiding. Shelby ran one finger across the printer's metal cover. "I used to hate this thing." "Why?" "It printed slowly when the weather was cold. Mark wouldn't let my drivers leave until the ticket was clear. That sounds like him." He said a bad ticket turned one load into 3 arguments. Jasmine picked up the note from the desk. "Do you know what this means?" Shelby read it. Source code was where the stone came from. East cut, south pit, north bench, something like that. "Why did it need checking before the total?" "Ask Jeffrey. He worked the scale longer than anyone." "I thought Dad stopped calling him." "He stopped giving Jeffrey regular hours. That's not the same thing." Shelby opened the printer cover. The roll inside was wider than an ordinary receipt roll, with a yellow duplicate layer wound beneath the white paper. "Don't pull it," she said. "If it's been sitting cold, it might tear." Jasmine hadn't reached for it, but she put her hands in her pockets. Shelby closed the cover. "What exactly did the will give you?" "The office, the scale, the records, and the bill. Just this parcel, that's what the page looks like. And your brothers, the rest." Shelby nodded once. She did not offer sympathy, which Jasmine appreciated more than she expected. "Are you keeping it?" Shelby asked. "I paid for an hour of roof advice. I didn't pay for life advice. You haven't paid for anything yet." "I'll bring the tarp back." "That isn't what I asked." Jasmine walked to the window. Beyond the dirty glass, the scale deck disappeared beneath a thin layer of snow. "If I let Noah include this place in his sale, Brian will say I couldn't handle it. Noah will say he protected me. Then they'll both believe Dad made a mistake leaving it to me. Do you believe he made a mistake? No?" The answer came too quickly. Shelby waited. Jasmine rubbed a clean spot in the glass with her sleeve. "I don't know why he left it to me. That's a different answer." "I know. Maybe find that out before you spend $24,000. Jasmine turned. "How do you know the amount?" "People talk." "Already?" "Your brother asked me last week if I knew anyone buying Quarry acreage." "Noah?" "He didn't say the land was his yet. He said it would be." Jasmine looked toward the road. Noah had known what Mark intended, he had said. Apparently, he had known early enough to start making calls before the papers were signed. Shelby watched her understand that. She regretted saying it so bluntly, but not enough to take it back. Mark had often treated Jasmine's unpaid help as something naturally available. Shelby had accepted it too. She had sent corrected orders at night because Jasmine always answered. "I owe you an apology," Shelby said. "For what?" "Those Sunday invoices. I knew you weren't on payroll." Jasmine looked at her. "I told myself it was family business," Shelby continued. "That's a useful phrase when the family member doing the work isn't billing you." The room became quiet except for water dripping into the second bucket. Jasmine wanted to excuse her. She almost did. It was an old reflex, smoothing the moment so nobody had to feel they had taken too much. Instead, she said, "You could have asked. I should have. So could Dad." "Yes." Jasmine expected that agreement to feel disloyal. It didn't. It only made the office seem more honest. They spent the next hour boarding the broken window with plywood Shelby had brought for a delivery rack. Jasmine measured while Shelby cut outside with a battery saw. The first panel was a 1/4 inch too wide. Jasmine marked it again, trimmed the edge, and fitted it tight enough that the wind stopped whistling through the frame. Shelby packed her tools, but left the ladder and tarp. "I'll come back Saturday," she said, "in daylight, with roof brackets. I can't afford a contractor. I'm not a contractor. That doesn't make your time free. No. You can help me rebuild 2 storage bins at my yard when this is dry." Jasmine considered it. A trade was different from being rescued. "All right." Shelby reached the door, then glanced at the gray cabinet. "Call Jeffrey before you touch that printer." "Do you have his number?" "I do. But you do too." "I don't think so." Shelby pointed at the wall beside the desk. A faded emergency contact sheet hung behind an old calendar. Jeffrey's name was at the bottom, written in Mark's hand, with the word "scale" beside it. Jasmine took a picture. After Shelby left, she stood in the office with the door closed. The new plywood panel held firm. The tarp thumped overhead, but no snow fell through the ceiling. She opened the maintenance folder once more and added the day's date to a blank sheet. Covered damaged roof, boarded east window, moved records to dry storage. She wrote her initials in the last column, then stopped. For years, she had left the labor line empty. Jasmine took the pencil and wrote 2 hours. Then she photographed the sheet and sent it to Shelby. 2 hours, she wrote. "I'll trade them properly." Shelby replied with a thumbs up, and nothing else. Jasmine locked the office and drove home through steady snow. She rented the upper half of a narrow brick house near the railroad tracks. The downstairs tenant kept the heat high, so her kitchen was always warmer than the rest of the apartment. That night, she sat at the small table in Mark's jacket and spread out the papers she had brought from the office. She read until almost midnight. Most of it was ordinary quarry work: truck numbers, customer names, loads of road base and drain rock, handwritten corrections where a driver had entered the wrong weight. Mark's initials appeared on nearly every page. The source codes were usually simple. EC appeared beside loads from the East Cut. SP appeared beside material from the South Pit. Jasmine remembered hearing those names, though she couldn't have pointed to either location on a map. Near the end of one ticket book, the letters NB appeared 3 times. The space beside them was blank. Every other source entry had a second short code written after it. EC loads usually carried one code. South Pit loads carried another. Jasmine couldn't tell what the second group of letters meant. The 3 North Bench entries had been crossed out. Each bore the same note: hold, verify at scale. She checked the dates. The tickets were more than a year old. They came from the final month the quarry had shipped regular loads. She looked through the next ticket book. Its cover was labeled with the following month, but the numbered pages began much later than they should have. A section was missing. Jasmine ran her thumb along the binding. The pages hadn't been torn out. The book had simply started with a later number, as if another book or roll belonged between the two. She took out her phone and opened the picture of the emergency contact sheet. It was too late to call Jeffrey. She told herself she would wait until morning, then spend another 20 minutes searching his name online. All she found was an old notice from the Quarry Association and a phone listing with the same number Mark had written. At 8 the next morning, she called. A man answered on the 6th ring. "Hello? Is this Jeffrey Dunn? Depends who's asking. Jasmine Elliott." The line went quiet. She heard a cabinet close on his end. "I'm sorry about your dad," he said. "Thank you. I went to the service. I didn't see you. I was in the front." "Right. Lot of people." She waited for him to ask why she was calling. He didn't. "I have the scale office," she said. "That right?" "Dad left it to me." Jeffrey made a low sound that wasn't quite surprise. "What did the boys get?" "The rest of the quarry." "Sounds like Mark." Jasmine sat straighter. "What does that mean?" "It means he could split a sandwich into 3 pieces and still make 2 people mad." Despite herself, she smiled. "I found your number beside the scale," she said. "I need help with the ticket system." "System hasn't run in a while." "Can it? Anything can run if it isn't burned, bent, or full of mice." "Would you look at it?" Another pause followed. This one felt less guarded. "Brian asked you to call?" "No." "Noah?" "No." "Do they know you're doing it?" "It belongs to me." That wasn't my question. Jasmine looked at the papers on her table. "I'm not asking their permission." "All right. Is that a yes?" "It's an all right." Jeffrey agreed to meet her at 10. Before leaving home, Jasmine called the utility office. The account on the scale building had been closed after Mark's death. Reconnection required a deposit, payment of the old balance, and confirmation that the county's notice didn't prohibit temporary service. The amount came to $680. Jasmine read her debit card number over the phone. Her savings had been meant to cover the tax bill. Now the number in that account was already moving in the wrong direction. The utility clerk said service could be restored by noon. Jasmine reached the Quarry office first. Morning sun shone through thin clouds and turned the snow bright enough to hurt her eyes. The tarp had held. A shallow pool of meltwater remained beside the front step. But the records were dry. Jeffrey arrived in an old green pickup with a red toolbox behind the seat. He was 68, lean and slightly stooped through the shoulders. His gray beard was trimmed close. He wore tinted safety glasses even after stepping indoors. He stood just inside the office and looked around. "Same smell," he said. "You remember the smell? Wet carpet and hot dust. A hard combination to forget." He placed his toolbox on the counter and noticed the maintenance sheet on the desk. "You put your hours down." "I did." "Good. Dad never did." Jeffrey looked at her over the top of his glasses. "Your dad had several blind spots. You worked for him most of your life. That's how I found them." He crossed to the scale indicator. Before touching it, he checked the wall panel and followed the conduit with his eyes. "Who sealed that junction outside?" "Dad, I think." "Not with tape that neat." Jasmine remembered kneeling in dead grass the previous afternoon. "Maybe me." "You'd know. I sealed a few boxes for him. He didn't always say where they were." Jeffrey removed a screwdriver from his pocket. "Then that was you." He opened the lower panel beneath the indicator. The wiring inside looked clean, though 2 fuses had been removed and placed in a small envelope. Jeffrey read Mark's handwriting on the front. "Pull if office shuts down." He was protecting the board, Jeffrey said. Didn't trust power coming back after a long outage. "Can we put them in?" "We can inspect first." He made Jasmine hold the flashlight while he checked the terminals. He didn't take the light from her or move her hand without asking. When he needed a different angle, he said so. She noticed because Brian never did that. Jeffrey opened the printer next. The paper roll remained in place. He turned one gear with the tip of his finger, then stopped. "Feed wheel's stiff. Can we loosen it?" "Maybe." "Don't force it." "I wasn't going to." Everybody forces printers. It's why printers hate people. He removed the ribbon cartridge and set it on a clean rag. Then he inspected the scale controls, the wall panel, and the small terminal Mark had used to enter truck and source information. Jasmine showed him the crossed-out North Bench tickets. Jeffrey held one near the window. "Where'd you find this?" "In the cabinet." "You find the tickets between these numbers?" "No. The next book starts later." He checked the sequence twice. "Could be in another box," he said. "What does NB mean?" "North Bench." "I figured that much." "Then why'd you ask?" "Because Dad wrote to verify it at the scale." Jeffrey brought the ticket to the terminal. The terminal had a narrow display, a worn keypad, and a row of paper labels beneath the screen. Most labels named customers or types of stone. The last 2 buttons had no labels at all. "He changed the codes," Jeffrey said. "When?" "Years back. More than 20. "Why?" "Paperwork on the land changed." "What paperwork?" "I don't know. He didn't bring deeds to the scale house. But you entered the codes. I entered what he gave me." Jasmine pointed to the blank second field on the ticket. "What went here?" "Owner code." "The customer?" "No. Material owner." She looked at him. Jeffrey set the ticket down. Every load carried 2 places in the system: where it came off the ground and whose stone it was. "Wasn't all the stone Dad's?" "I assumed so when I started." Then Mark changed the setup. "What did he tell you?" "To stop assuming." "That's it?" That was Mark. If he could answer a question with 4 words, he'd use 3. Jasmine looked toward the dark printer. Would the missing tickets show the North Bench owner code, if they were completed correctly? And if they aren't here, the terminal might remember the last entries, might not. Depends whether the memory battery held. What about the roll in the printer? That's the duplicate, so the missing tickets could be on it. Jeffrey's expression changed. "Could be," he said. "But if you wind it backward, you'll break the sequence." "I haven't touched it." "Good. Keep not touching it." A utility truck pulled into the gravel turnout shortly after noon. The worker checked the county placard, read the temporary service approval on his tablet. and restored power at the exterior meter. He left after confirming that the office breaker remained off. Jeffrey shut every switch inside. "Ready?" he asked. Jasmine stood beside the panel. "Yes." "Turn on the main." She did. The overhead light flickered. One tube glowed weakly, then steadied. The wall heater made a clicking sound but didn't start. Jeffrey watched the scale indicator. Its screen flashed, went dark, then returned with a row of zeros. Jasmine let out the breath she'd been holding. "That's good, right? It's not bad." The terminal gave a short beep. Green letters appeared across its display. "Memory check." Jeffrey pressed one key. The screen changed to a date from the previous year. He moved through the stored fields slowly. The customer line was blank. The truck line was blank. The source field read NB. Beneath it, another field displayed 2 letters and a number, ME-1. Jasmine leaned closer. "Is that the owner code?" "Yes." "What does it mean?" "Mark Elliott, account 1, or Mark's estate." "Could mean either, depending how he wrote the table. You said the land paperwork changed." "It did." "Did he use that code before?" "Not for the other pits." She placed the crossed-out ticket beside the terminal. Then, North Bench was being tracked differently. Jeffrey didn't answer at once. He went back through the memory screen and checked the date. "This entry was created the same week as these hold tickets," he said. "So it's connected." "It looks connected." "That's not what you said." "It's all I can say." Jasmine felt impatience rise. "You ran this scale. I weighed trucks. I didn't own the ground. Who would know what the code means? The code table, if Mark kept it. The complete tickets, if we find them. Permit records might show which parcels fed the scale. And the deeds, they'd show who owned what. A ticket won't do that." The zeros on the scale indicator shifted. Wind had pressed snow against one edge of the deck, changing the reading by a few pounds. Jeffrey tapped the reset key, and the display returned to 0. Jasmine watched him. What would it take to make the whole system work? A proper inspection. Clean the load cells under the deck. Replace that feed wheel. New ribbon, calibration after. How long? If the cables are sound, a few days. How much? For parts? For you. Jeffrey's mouth tightened. Mark still owed me for 3 shifts. Jasmine hadn't known that. "How much?" $600. I'll pay it." "You didn't know it. The office did." "No, Mark did. He's gone. That doesn't make it yours." She thought of the blank labor lines in the maintenance folder. "I know what it's like when family work somehow doesn't count." Jeffrey studied her face, then looked away. "I'm not taking your tax money for his debt," he said. "You know about the bill too?" "It's helper." She almost smiled. "Then give me an estimate for new work. Include the old 600 as a condition." "That's a trick. It's bookkeeping." He rubbed one thumb along the edge of the ticket. "You always did his invoices, didn't you?" "Yes." "Thought so." Jeffrey agreed to return Saturday morning. He would help inspect the scale for a daily rate, with the unpaid shifts added only if the system could be restored. Before leaving, he wrote 3 things on a sheet of paper. Find code table. Do not advance ticket roll. Get parcel list. Jasmine already had the parcel list from probate. After his truck disappeared toward town, she set it beside the North Bench ticket. The same piece of ground now existed in 3 forms she didn't understand. A family parcel, a quarry source, and an owner code that didn't match the other pits. The office no longer felt like a shelter she needed to defend from her brother's judgment. It contained a question Mark had kept alive after regular shipping stopped. Jasmine switched off the printer but left the scale indicator glowing. Then she opened the first storage cabinet and began searching for the code table. The first cabinet held nothing except customer files and mouse droppings. The second was packed with safety manuals, blank invoices, and a coffee tin full of keys that opened nothing in the office. Jasmine searched the desk again. She checked beneath each drawer and ran her hand along the underside of the counter. By the time the light outside turned blue, she had found 3 dead pens, a nickel, and an old peppermint stuck to the wood. The code table wasn't there. She took pictures of the terminal screen before shutting off the power. Then she locked the crossed-out tickets in the file cabinet and carried the parcel list home. For the next 2 evenings, she came after work and searched one section at a time. She removed binders, wiped shelves, and checked every folder before putting it back. She found records from customers who had closed years ago. She found inspection forms for equipment Brian now owned. She found a grocery receipt with Mark's handwriting on the back. Call Jazz about West Window. That note had nothing to do with North Bench. She folded it anyway and put it in her coat pocket. By Saturday morning, the snow had stopped. Water ran beneath the gravel in narrow brown streams. Jasmine arrived before 8 and found Jeffrey already parked beside the scale. He had brought a thermos, a portable work light, and 2 coveralls folded behind his seat. "You're early," she said. "So are you. I own the place." "That doesn't make 8 o'clock arrive sooner." He handed her one set of coveralls. They had his name stitched over the pocket. "These will fit badly," he said. "They'll fit better than limestone mud." Shelby pulled in 15 minutes later with roof brackets, lumber, and a metal box full of screws. Jeffrey watched her unload. "You fixing the roof or building another one?" "Depends how much rot we find. There's always more rot." "You're cheerful. I worked here." They knew each other well enough to argue without introduction. Shelby had spent years complaining about late loads. Jeffrey had spent the same years explaining that a truck arriving late couldn't become early just because the customer was angry. Jasmine listened while carrying lumber. Their familiar irritation made the office feel briefly occupied again. Shelby climbed first and tested each section before allowing Jasmine onto the lower roof. They removed the loose sheet, cut away a strip of damaged underlayment, and fitted new plywood across the open corner. The roof beneath the peeled edge was damp but not soft. "That's good," Shelby said. "How good?" "Good enough that I'm not telling you to run." They covered the repair with membrane and fastened the metal sheet over it. The patch didn't match the weathered roof around it. Jasmine didn't care. When Shelby poured a bucket of water above the seam, nothing appeared inside. Jeffrey stood beneath the repaired corner and looked at the dry ceiling. "I preferred the bucket," he said. "Easy to inspect." Shelby handed him the empty bucket. "Put it over your chair." By noon, the front edge of the office was weatherproof. The broken step remained, and the carpet still needed removal, but the building no longer admitted snow through the roof or window. Jasmine wrote 4 more hours on the maintenance sheet. Shelby looked over her shoulder. "You're counting lunch?" "We didn't stop. We ate sandwiches." "On the roof. Fair." Jasmine added Shelby's name and marked the work as a trade. Then she turned to Jeffrey. "You too. I haven't done anything yet. You inspected the equipment Thursday. That was looking. You charge for looking. Not when the person asking has $24,000 due. That's not your decision." Jeffrey started to argue. Shelby pointed at the sheet. "Write your hours, Jeff." He frowned at both of them, then wrote 3. They moved outside to inspect the scale. The steel deck rested over a shallow concrete pit. Years of gravel had collected around the edges, pressing against the moving parts beneath. Jeffrey removed an access cover near the center. Cold, damp air rose from the opening. "Before this weighs anything," he said, "that material has to come out." Jasmine shone a light into the pit. Crushed stone lay several inches deep around the load supports. "With what? Shovels, vacuum, hands when the tools don't fit. How long?" "A day if nobody complains." Shelby leaned over the opening. 2 days then. They started with square shovels and 5-gallon buckets. The work was slow. Each bucket had to be lifted through the narrow access opening, carried clear of the deck, and dumped onto a plastic sheet. Jasmine's shoulders began aching before the first hour passed. Limestone dust worked inside Jeffrey's old coveralls and gathered at her wrists. She kept going. Jeffrey climbed into the pit after the larger material was gone. He showed her the round load cells under the deck and the cables running from each one. "Those cells sense the weight," he said. "If rock binds the deck, the reading drifts. If water gets into a cable, the reading lies. Can the reading look normal and still be wrong? Most wrong things look normal at first." He wiped the cable connections with a rag. One line had a split in its outer cover, but the inner seal remained intact. The others were dirty and dry. Jasmine worked opposite him, passing tools and clearing the corners he couldn't reach. He didn't tell her to stand back. When he showed her how to inspect the seals, he waited while she checked each one herself. Shelby left after lunch to open her yard for an afternoon delivery. Before going, she stood on the scale deck and watched the indicator through the office window. The display changed when she stepped near the center. "Either it works," she called, or "I've gained a lot of weight." Jeffrey pressed the test button. The number returned to 0 after Shelby stepped down. "The cells are responding," he said. Jasmine wiped dust from her face. "That sounds better than not bad." It is. By late afternoon, they had cleared the pit and cleaned the terminal. Jeffrey replaced the printer ribbon with one he had kept in his garage. The new ribbon fit, but the feed wheels still resisted. He removed the side cover and pointed to a hardened rubber roller. That has to be replaced. If we run it now, it could chew the duplicate. Can you find one? Not from the manufacturer. This model's older than some marriages. You said anything could run. I said if it wasn't burned, bent, or full of mice. No mice. Then I'll measure it. He used a small gauge from his toolbox and wrote the dimensions on the maintenance sheet. A machine shop could make a replacement core, he said, but the rubber coating would take several days. Jasmine turned on the terminal and returned to the stored North Bench entry. Can we find the code table another way? Jeffrey checked the labels beneath the keys. Mark kept a printed card near the operator. I've emptied every drawer. Did you check the program panel? What program panel? He crouched beside the counter and pointed to a narrow metal door built into its base. Years of dust had made the seam nearly invisible. That. The door had no handle, only a small round lock. Jasmine took the keyring from the desk. The key-marked panel entered but stopped halfway. Jeffrey held out his hand. Let me. She kept the key. It's my lock. She pulled it out, cleaned the opening with compressed air, and tried again. The key slid farther. She pressed one thumb against the door to ease pressure from the latch, then turned. The lock opened. Behind the door was a bank of switches and an old programming port. A plywood divider covered the back half of the space. Jeffrey frowned. That wasn't there. When did you last open it? Before Mark stopped regular shipping. He tapped the plywood. It gave a hollow sound. 4 screws held it against the frame. Their heads were clean compared with the metal around them, as if they had been removed more recently. Jasmine backed them out with a screwdriver. The panel came free. Behind it was a shallow cavity between the counter and the wall. A clear plastic document pouch had been fastened inside with 2 strips of metal tape. Jasmine pulled it loose. The pouch contained a folded scale map, 3 code cards, and a narrow maintenance ledger. None of it looked valuable. The paper smelled dry and old. Jeffrey unfolded the map across the counter. It showed the quarry as it had operated before Mark became sick. The East Cut and South Pit were outlined in black. North Bench appeared at the top in red pencil, divided into 4 source areas. No legal parcel numbers appeared on the map. A handwritten note beside the red outline read, "Use current parcel entry only." Jasmine laid the code cards beside it. 2 were worn and stained. The newest was clean enough to read. Source, NB, owner, me1. Status, hold for active entry. At the bottom, Mark had written a permit reference and the date, 2004. Jeffrey sat down slowly. This is when he changed the system, he said. What does active entry mean? The operator had to enter the current surface parcel each time material came from North Bench. Why only there? I don't know. Did the other pits cross parcel lines? They crossed lines, but the system filled those numbers automatically. So, North Bench was different. Yes. Jasmine placed the stored terminal entry beside the code card. They matched. Mark hadn't entered ME-1 by accident. He had instructed the scale to use it for North Bench, and he had protected the instruction behind the panel. What happened in 2004? She asked. Jeffrey traced the permit reference with one finger. Mark had land papers done. Afterward, he made me change the owner fields. Who did the land papers? I never saw them. Did Noah? Noah was still young. Brian, too. Did Mark say why he separated the codes? He said the scale had to follow the stone, not just the truck. Jasmine waited. That's all he told me, Jeffrey said. She opened the narrow ledger. It contained calibration dates and changes to the ticket format. One entry described adding separate fields for surface parcel and mineral owner. Mark's initials appeared beside it. Jeffrey's signature confirmed he had updated the terminal. It proved that the code was deliberate. It did not prove what Mark owned, where the affected parcels were, or whether the old instructions still mattered. Jasmine photographed every page before returning the documents to the pouch. Jeffrey looked at the open cavity. He expected somebody to service the panel, or he expected nobody to look. He labeled the key. For me, you're the one who found it. That wasn't an answer, but Jasmine no longer believed the office had reached her by accident. A truck entered the turnout near dusk. Shelby had returned with 2 cups of coffee and a clear sample bag from her yard. Jeffrey showed her the map and explained the two-code system. Shelby listened without touching the documents. So, can she supply from North Bench? Shelby asked. No, Jeffrey said. Jasmine looked at him. He said the record isn't permission, Jeffrey continued. The scale tells us Mark tracked something separately, that's all. Shelby nodded. Then permission comes first. She placed the sample bag on the counter. Inside was pale crushed stone. My current supplier is 80 miles away, she said. Freight is eating the margin, and they missed 2 deliveries this month. What do you need? Jasmine asked. A dependable local source. Start with 1 test load. If the stone meets grade, we talk about regular supply. I don't have operating equipment. Your brothers do. They aren't going to lend it. Then find another way. I care about the material and lawful access. I don't care whose loader touches it. Jeffrey tapped the permit reference. Permit history should tell us which ground North Bench covered. Would you buy if I establish the source? Jasmine asked. Shelby met her eyes. I'll request the test shipment in writing, conditional on title, permits, and safe access. The offer was small enough to be real. It was also the first time anyone had treated the office as part of possible work instead of a burden. Jasmine looked at the map, then at the parcel list from probate. Her brother's pages lay folded beneath her own. To answer Shelby, she would have to compare them. To reach North Bench, she might have to cross land Noah was already trying to sell. She could no longer investigate quietly while pretending she only wanted to save an old room. She took out the brothers' parcel pages and laid them beside Mark's map. The legal descriptions were too dense to match by sight. Each began at a survey point Jasmine couldn't locate, then followed bearings and distances across land that had been divided more than once. Jeffrey tried laying Mark's map over the probate pages. No scale, he said. These aren't drawn the same. Could the permit reference have a parcel schedule? Jasmine asked. Should. Where? County might have a copy. State mining office would have the full file. Shelby checked the time. Both are closed until Monday. Jasmine turned the map toward the office window. The red North Bench outline followed the upper quarry rim, but the brothers' pages gave her no picture of that ground. What if we drive up there? She asked. Jeffrey shook his head. Hall Road goes through the equipment gate. I know the old code. Brian said he was changing it. Shelby looked from one to the other. Can you see the bench from outside their property? Part of it, Jasmine said. They drove a mile north and stopped beside a public turnout above the rail line. From there, the quarry opened across the valley in broad gray levels. Snow had settled on the untouched ground. Exposed stone showed through in pale bands along the upper bench. Jeffrey stood beside Jasmine and used Mark's map to orient himself. East Cut is there, he said, pointing toward the lowest wall. South Pit is behind the crusher. North Bench starts above that old service road. Where does Noah's land start? Don't know. Brian's? Don't know that either. Jasmine had spent years coming to the quarry without learning where one parcel ended and another began. The business had always been presented to her as one place. Her brothers learned its divisions because those divisions mattered to their jobs. She had accepted not needing to know. Shelby took a picture of the bench. Stone looks sound from here. You can tell from this far away? Jasmine asked. I can tell it's stone. Sound comes after testing. The practical answer settled her. They weren't standing there to invent value. They were trying to find out whether the old record still described something usable. On Monday morning, Jasmine used her lunch break to visit the county records counter. She brought Mark's permit number, the probate parcel list, and a copy of the code card. The clerk searched the permit reference and found a scanned index. The full operating file was kept by the state, but the county retained site maps because the quarry crossed several tax parcels. Jasmine paid for printed copies. The oldest map showed one large tract. A later map showed the surface divided into smaller parcels. The newest assessor sheet carried the current parcel numbers and the names assigned during probate. Noah Elliott appeared beside the northern parcels. Brian Elliott appeared beside the southern ones. The North Bench permit outline crossed both areas. Jasmine placed Mark's hand-drawn map over the county copy. The shapes matched closely enough to confirm that they described the same bench. What the papers did not show was who owned the stone beneath it. The county map tracked surface taxpayers, not mineral ownership. She asked for the quarry's permit status. The clerk printed a one-page summary. The permit was inactive, not canceled. Reactivation would require a current operator, proof of lawful extraction rights, an inspection, and an updated safety plan. No stone could be removed for sale until those conditions were met. The office parcel had another problem. The tax and code charges had to be cleared before the county would approve it as an active dispatch site. Jasmine read that line twice. The tax sale was 7 weeks away. Shelby needed a dependable source, but even one test shipment required work that couldn't begin while the property remained delinquent. She returned to her car with the maps under her arm. Her lunch hour had run long. She called her supervisor and used one of her remaining personal hours. Then she called Shelby. "The permit can be reactivated," Jasmine said. "Can isn't will." "I know. They need title, inspection, and a safety plan." "What did the map show?" "North Bench crosses land Noah and Brian received." Shelby was quiet for a moment. "Does it show who owns the material?" "No." "Then don't promise me a load." "I'm not." "Good. What's next?" "I clear the office bill, fix the code problems, and find the title record." "That's 3 next things. They're connected. They're also expensive." Jasmine looked at the balance in her savings account through her banking app. She had spent years building it in small deposits. It was enough to stop the tax sale, but paying the county would leave almost nothing for repairs. "I need your test request in writing," she said. "Why?" "Because I'm not spending everything I have on a possibility you mentioned over coffee." Shelby accepted that without offense. "I'll send it today. 1 load for testing, conditional on lawful source, and permit clearance. No purchase promise beyond that. That's enough." "No, it's just honest." By the time Jasmine returned to work, Shelby's request was in her email. It named the type of crushed stone, the testing standard, and the delivery window. Shelby needed the sample within 5 weeks to consider North Bench for the next supply cycle. Jasmine printed it after her shift and drove to the scale office. Noah's truck was parked outside. He stood beneath the repaired roof edge with both hands in his coat pockets. He had removed the county placard from the window and placed it against the wall. "You can't take that down," Jasmine said. "I moved it so I could see the repair. Put it back." He looked at her, then returned the placard to the window. "Shelby did this?" "We did." "You're working with her now?" "She lent me equipment. I'm trading labor." "What labor? That's between me and Shelby." Noah glanced toward the scale. The access cover had been replaced, but cleaned gravel around the deck showed where they had worked. "And Jeffrey? He knows the system. He hasn't worked here regularly in years. He still knows more about the scale than either of us." Noah didn't argue. He walked inside while Jasmine unlocked the door. The overhead light came on. The dry room and boarded window made him stop. "You got power restored?" "Yes." "With the county notice?" "Temporary approval." He touched the new plywood panel, then looked at the maintenance sheet on the desk. Jasmine had entered every hour and material cost. "You're serious about this," he said. "I said I was keeping it. You said you were going to look at it. That was before I looked." Noah sat in Mark's chair. Jasmine wanted to tell him to move. She didn't, and that bothered her. He took a folded paper from his coat. "I spoke to the buyer again." "Already?" "He wants the entrance parcel included. The scale can come out. It's staying." "Listen first." He opened the paper. "I'll pay the county charges. I'll add $5,000 for the property and handle demolition. You walk away clear." Jasmine read the offer. It was written in Noah's careful block letters, not prepared by an attorney. $29,000 total, she said. "The office isn't worth that." "Then why offer it?" "Because the entrance matters." "What's the buyer paying you?" "That's for my parcels." "You're asking for mine? I'm trying to avoid wasting money inside the family." She placed his offer back on the desk. "I need time." His eyebrows rose. He had expected either relief or an argument. Delay worried him more. "What are you waiting for?" "The state permit file." "For a dead quarry?" "The permit's inactive. That means dead. It means inactive." Noah leaned back and looked around. His attention moved from the terminal to the open program panel. "What did you find?" "A code table." "For what?" "The scale." "Jasmine!" She could hear the warning inside her name. North Bench was tracked separately. Separately from what? The other sources. That system is older than the equipment. It was updated. By Dad? Yes. Noah stood. "Are you planning to enter my land?" "No." "Brian's?" "No." "Then what does North Bench have to do with this building?" "I'm trying to find that out." He looked toward the file cabinet. The Quarry records should have been divided with the Quarry. The will left the office contents to me. Office records aren't the same as personal furniture. They aren't yours because they mention your land. I didn't say they were mine. You came with an offer after seeing Shelby's truck. I came because the buyer needs an answer. Then tell him no. Noah's jaw shifted. He folded his paper along the existing crease. You don't know what you're holding up, he said. Neither do you. He left the offer on the desk and walked out. Jasmine watched his truck turn toward town. She knew he would call Brian before reaching the highway. The call came 10 minutes later. What did you tell Noah about North Bench? Brian asked. The truth. I found old scale codes. You went through Dad's records, my records. Some of those books cover loads from my ground. Do you know that? I know where the quarry is. That isn't the same thing. Brian lowered his voice. You don't get to turn an office into permission to wander over 52 acres. I haven't crossed the gate. Shelby has. She came to my parcel. Jeffrey, my parcel. Then keep them there. Jasmine looked at the county map, spread beneath Mark's smaller one. I need to inspect North Bench. No, I didn't ask to remove anything. No. Why? Because Noah's trying to sell, and I'm trying to get the equipment operating again. I don't need people climbing around because you found an old abbreviation. The permit map covers both your parcels. It's an old permit. It can be reactivated. Brian went silent. Jasmine realized he hadn't known that. What are you trying to do? He asked. Find out why Dad kept the scale system. He kept it because nobody wanted to haul it away. That's not what the records show. You have no equipment, no crews, and no right to touch my ground. I know what I don't have. Do you? Yes. Her calmness made him angrier than shouting would have. He said he was changing the gate code that evening. He also said no contractor working for him would assist with the office, scale, or permit. If Jasmine needed anything from the equipment yard, she was to call him and wait outside. When he finished, she said, "Put that in writing." What? The boundary. Put it in writing. You want me to send you a letter saying you can't trespass? I want you to be clear about what you're refusing. I just was. Then write it. Brian ended the call. Half an hour later, a text arrived. No access across my surface parcels without written permission. This includes your workers, customers, and contractors. Jasmine saved a screenshot and emailed it to herself. His refusal closed the haul road, but it also answered a question nobody had been willing to state. Her brothers didn't consider the office part of the quarry when they were dividing value. Now they considered it part of the quarry when she tried to use it. She pinned Shelby's test request beside the county deadline. 5 weeks for a lawful sample, 7 weeks before the tax sale. Between them, she pinned Brian's written refusal. The next morning, Jasmine sat at her kitchen table with her bank balance open on the screen. She wrote down rent, groceries, car insurance, and the reconnection payment. Then she subtracted $24,000. The remaining number was smaller than 3 months of ordinary expenses. She checked the math twice, though there was nothing difficult about it. If she accepted Noah's offer, the county bill disappeared and $5,000 remained. She could return Shelby's tarp, close the office door, and explain the whole thing as a sensible decision. Nobody would call that a failure except Brian. That should not have mattered as much as it did. Jasmine called the county and asked whether a payment plan would stop the sale. The clerk said payments could be accepted, but the delinquent status would remain until the full amount cleared. The office parcel could not be approved for active quarry use while that status remained. Can I pay part now and the rest before the deadline? Jasmine asked. You can, but the tax sale stays scheduled. What happens if I pay in full today? The sale is canceled. The account shows clear by the next business day. Jasmine thanked her and ended the call. She sat still until the kitchen heater clicked off. In the sudden quiet, she could hear a freight train moving beyond the houses. Mark's jacket hung over the back of her chair. She had brought it home each night, though she no longer needed it for warmth. She put on her own coat. At the county office, she handed over a cashier's check for $24,000. The clerk stamped 3 copies of the receipt. One went into the county file. One was attached to the release notice. The third was placed in Jasmine's hand. That clears the sale, the clerk said. Jasmine folded the receipt once. Is the property safe now? The clerk asked. The roof's sealed. I'm still repairing it. You'll need another inspection before anyone occupies it. I know. Outside, Jasmine stood near the courthouse steps and checked her account again. The transfer had posted. Years of saving had become a stamped sheet of paper, and permission not to lose a building everyone else thought should be torn down. She took a picture of the receipt and sent it to Noah. "I paid the county. I'm not accepting your offer," he called before she reached her car. "You paid all of it?" "Yes." "Why would you do that without talking to me?" "We talked. I told you I'd cover it. If I gave you the property, that's the point. You could have kept your savings and lost the office. You're spending real money to protect something that doesn't earn anything. It can't earn anything if you clear it for an entrance." Noah breathed out slowly. "The buyer won't wait forever." "Then don't ask him to. This affects more than you." "So did the will." He went quiet. Jasmine knew that was unfair in a simple way. Noah hadn't written the will. He hadn't put the equipment titles in his own folder. But he had accepted every useful asset without asking whether the division made sense. He only questioned Mark's judgment when her property interfered with his plans. "I'm not selling today," she said. "If that changes, I'll tell you. Today? It means stop pressing me. I'm trying to keep you from burning through your money. It's already spent. That doesn't make it smart. No, it makes it mine." She ended the call before he could answer. Her hands were trembling. She placed them flat on the steering wheel until they stopped. When she reached the office, Jeffrey had left a cardboard box beside the door. Inside was the new printer roller, a package of cleaning cloths, and a note. "Machine shop finished early. Don't install without me." Jasmine carried the box inside and pinned the county release beneath the deadlines on the wall. The tax sale notice came down. The orange safety placard stayed on the window. Clearing the money didn't repair the building, and she wasn't going to pretend it did. Shelby arrived after lunch with a survey printout and a set of bright marking flags. "The county map shows your parcel extending 40 feet behind the office," she said. "There's a stockpile inside that line." Jasmine followed her around the building. A low mound of pale crushed stone sat beneath weeds and windblown dirt. She had assumed it belonged to the equipment yard. 2 old survey pins marked the rear corners of the office parcel. Shelby measured from them and placed flags along the boundary. Most of the stockpile fell inside Jasmine's strip. A narrow edge crossed onto Brian's side. "We don't touch that part," Shelby said. "Can you test the rest?" "I can take samples. That doesn't prove where it came from. The last held tickets might." "Might isn't enough for a sale." "I know." Shelby looked at her. "Good. Keep saying that." They scraped away the dirty top layer and filled 3 sample bags from different depths. The stone beneath was pale gray and dry. Shelby rubbed a handful between her gloves. "Looks like the north bench material Mark sold me," she said. "You remember it?" "I remember what customers asked for after it stopped coming." "Was it better?" "It packed clean. Didn't turn muddy after rain." "Why did Dad stop supplying it?" "He said access was complicated." Jasmine straightened. "When?" "Toward the end. Maybe the last 2 seasons." "Did he say who complicated it?" "No. I assumed equipment trouble. Then he got sick." Shelby labeled each bag with the date, location, and position within the stockpile. She gave Jasmine a copy of the sample sheet. "I'll run a basic gradation at my yard," she said. "If that passes, I'll send part for strength testing." "How long?" 2 days for what I can do, longer for a certified result." "What about your 5-week window? It still stands." Jasmine glanced toward the scale. "Jeffrey has the printer part. That helps the records. It doesn't open the gate." "No. And it doesn't prove title." "No." Shelby loaded the samples. "You paid the county, didn't you?" "How did you know?" "The sale notice is gone." Jasmine showed her the receipt. Shelby read the amount and gave it back. "That was all your savings?" "Not all. Most?" "Yes." "Then I need to be very clear. A good stone sample does not mean you have a quarry, I know. A code does not mean you own minerals, I know. My need for supply doesn't make your paperwork true. I know, Shelby." "All right." Jasmine's sharpness didn't offend her. Shelby had wanted to hear resistance. People making frightened decisions often agreed too quickly. "I'm going to test the stone," Shelby said. "If it fails, I'll tell you plainly. That's what I need." Jeffrey returned the following morning to install the roller. Jasmine held the printer cover while he aligned the new core. He turned the feed gear by hand, 1 tooth at a time. The paper moved. The white top layer advanced less than an inch. Beneath it, the yellow duplicate remained tight around its spool. "Stop there," Jasmine said. I was stopping. The sequence number visible at the print edge followed the last complete ticket book in the cabinet. That gave them one useful fact. The duplicate roll belonged in the missing gap. Jeffrey wrote down the number without pulling more paper. Continuous so far, he said. Can we print the stored entry? Not until calibration. A ticket produced by an unverified scale creates more confusion. When can we calibrate? When we have legal weight and somebody authorized to witness it. What kind of weight? A loaded truck with a certified weight, or test blocks. Do we have either? Brian has the old test blocks. He won't lend them. Then Shelby may know a carrier willing to bring a calibration load. Jasmine thought of Brian's written refusal. No access across his surface parcel included customers and contractors. The scale itself sat on her property, with its own pullout from North Main Street. A truck could reach it without crossing his gate. Could we calibrate here without entering the quarry? She asked. Yes. Then asked Shelby. Jeffrey studied her. You're not trying to sneak a shipment out? There's no shipment. Good. I want the system working. That costs more, I know. You've been saying that a lot. People keep telling me what I don't have. He closed the printer cover. Maybe because you've started asking what you do have. 2 days later, Shelby asked Jasmine to meet at the stone yard. The yard occupied a long piece of industrial ground south of Helper. Concrete bins divided different grades of rock. A loader moved between them, carrying material beneath a roofed hopper. Shelby led Jasmine into a small workroom beside the sales counter. 3 metal screens were stacked over a collection pan. The sampled stone had been washed, dried, and shaken through them. The size distribution is good, Shelby said. Low dirt, consistent fracture. So it passes? My basic test passes. The strength sample goes out tomorrow. Shelby handed her a page of results. Then she placed a second document on the table. It was a draft supply agreement. Jasmine read the first page slowly. The proposed term covered regular deliveries over 2 years, with volume increasing only after the first months met quality and schedule requirements. At full performance, the agreement was worth $620,000. The amount seemed too large for the workroom. Outside, a loader bucket scraped across concrete, and the ordinary noise helped. This is conditional, Shelby said. I see that. Authenticated mineral title, lawful surface access, reactivated permit, approved safety and reclamation plans, certified material results, no exceptions. You had this prepared before the test? I prepared a version. I filled in North Bench after today. Why that much? Because that's what my yard expects to buy over the term. I'm already paying someone else for it. Jasmine turned the page. You'd move the business here? No, I'd buy from you. You'd have to become a supplier. The difference mattered. She had been trying to preserve the office long enough to understand why Mark left it. The draft in front of her asked whether she could use that answer responsibly if she found it. It also made saving the building alone feel too small. If she sold to Noah now, she would never know whether Mark's separate code had protected real quarry rights. If she proved the rights and did nothing, Shelby would return to distant suppliers, Jeffrey would remain unpaid, and the scale would become a working machine with no work. Jasmine set the draft down. I don't want an open quarry running day and night. Neither do I. I want limited loads, scheduled access, dust control, and reclamation from the start. Put it in your operating plan. My brothers control the surface. Then, any plan has to deal with them. They may refuse even if the title is real. They can refuse what belongs to them. They can't decide what belongs to you. I don't know that anything does. Find out. Shelby gave her the unsigned agreement to take home. Back at the office, Jasmine removed Noah's handwritten offer from the desk. She didn't throw it away. She filed it with the other property papers. Then she opened a new binder and wrote reopening on the front. The first page held the county release. The second held Shelby's draft. On the third, Jasmine listed what victory would now require: prove title, secure lawful access, protect the land while using it. She underlined the first line and called the state records office. The woman who answered asked for the permit reference, then repeated it to make sure she had every digit right. The file is archived, she said. I can send the scanned history by email. How long will that take? Usually 3 business days. Does it include the parcel updates? If they were filed with the permit. What about deeds? We don't maintain title records. If the file refers to a recorded instrument, you'll need that from the county recorder. Jasmine paid the copying fee and gave her email address. She didn't ask Noah for his deeds. She didn't call Brian about the gate. Their refusal was already clear, and she no longer needed another version of it. Instead, she made a list of everything she could do from her own parcel. The scale could be cleaned, repaired, and tested from North Main Street. The office could be brought to code. The ticket sequence could be compared with the probate parcel list. Public permit records could be requested without crossing the gate. North Bench could wait until she had a lawful reason to approach it. Jeffrey arrived after work and found her replacing the front steps. She had removed the leaning wooden frame and set 2 concrete supports on compacted gravel. "You should have waited," he said. "For what?" "Another pair of hands. You're here now." He considered that, then picked up the far end of the new frame. Together, they lowered it onto the supports. Jasmine checked it with a level, adjusted one corner, and drove structural screws through the side plates. The new steps sat square against the office. Jeffrey climbed them twice. "They don't move," he said. "That's the idea, not how the old ones worked." Inside, he finished aligning the printer roller. Jasmine kept the power off to the printer while he fed a strip of blank paper through the gear path. The wheel turned evenly. "If we connect it, will it advance the duplicate?" she asked. "Only if the terminal sends a print command. So leave the data cable out." "That's what I was going to do." "I'm learning," I noticed. They powered the printer without connecting it to the terminal. The motor turned, the ribbon moved, no paper advanced. Jeffrey watched for a full minute before shutting it down. "Printer works," he said. The words gave Jasmine more satisfaction than they should have. She wrote the repair and the maintenance log and entered both their hours. Then she spread the completed ticket books across the counter. The parcel list from probate contained a long set of identifying numbers for each piece of land. The tickets used shorter groups, but some looked familiar. Jasmine took a ruler and began comparing them line by line. Most loads from the South Pit carried one surface code. That code matched the final digits of a parcel assigned to Brian. Loads from the East cut matched another of his parcels and one assigned to Noah. "Those aren't Quarry Zone numbers," she said. "No," Jeffrey said. "They're parcel entries. Actual legal parcels." That was the point. He found the old terminal instructions in a binder. The operator entered the last section of the parcel number, and the printer added the county prefix automatically. Jasmine checked 6 more tickets. Everyone matched land on the probate list. "So the system wasn't using approximate locations," she said. "No. It named the surface parcel for each load." "Yes. And the second field named the material owner. That's how Mark set it up." She placed the crossed-out North Bench tickets beside the complete ones. Their surface fields were blank, which explained the hold. The operator had entered the source, but had not selected the active parcel. The owner field was also blank on the paper tickets. The stored terminal entry supplied ME-1, but without the missing parcel entry, the record couldn't connect that owner code to a specific piece of North Bench land. "Could the terminal fill the parcel when we run it again?" Jasmine asked. "If the program table still exists. Can we check without printing? We can view the choices. We shouldn't create a load record until calibration." He opened the terminal's program menu. The North Bench source was active, but its parcel field showed auto from way event. "What does that mean?" she asked. Could mean Mark linked the parcel to a truck route. Could mean the operator selected it during the wait cycle. "Can you tell which?" "Not without running a proper cycle." The printer sat beside them, repaired but disconnected. Jasmine didn't ask him to test it early. The permit history arrived the following afternoon. The email contained 83 scanned pages. Jasmine printed only the index and the amendments, then saved copies in 3 places. She and Jeffrey read them at the office that evening. An amendment from 2004 required Quarry tickets to identify the surface parcel and the mineral owner for each source area. It used the same permit reference Mark had written on the code card. Near the bottom, a line referred to a recorded instrument by book and entry number. "What instrument?" Jasmine asked. Jeffrey shook his head. "Could be anything filed with the land change." "Would it explain ME-1? Maybe." The permit amendment did not include the instrument itself. It didn't name the brothers' current parcels because those divisions came later. It confirmed that Mark's 2-field ticket system had been part of the Quarry's official operating record. Jasmine added the amendment to the reopening binder. "I need the recorded copy," she said, "and somebody who knows how to read it. I'll get both." Before paying anyone to examine title, she wanted the scale ready to reproduce the system under proper conditions. That meant testing the weight without allowing the printer to create a ticket. Shelby agreed to bring a loaded truck from her yard. She chose a truck that could enter directly from North Main Street, stop on the scale, and return to the road without crossing the Elliott Gate. The truck would be weighed at a certified public scale first. Jeffrey could compare that weight with Jasmine's indicator and adjust the system. The printer would remain disconnected. They scheduled the test for Friday morning. Jasmine took the day off work. Her supervisor reminded her that she had used most of her personal hours. "I know," Jasmine said. "If this keeps going, you'll need unpaid leave. I understand." She didn't explain the quarry. She had spent too many years fitting family work around the edges of paid work. This time, she was choosing the cost before it chose her. At the office, she marked the truck path with cones and swept loose gravel from the scale deck. Jeffrey checked the load cells again. Shelby stood near the road with a radio, watching for traffic. The Cookstone truck arrived shortly after 9. Its certified weight was written on a seal slip in the driver's hand. Jeffrey refused to look at the number until the truck was centered on the deck. "Brakes set," he called. The engine shut down. The scale indicator climbed, paused, and settled. Jasmine read the number aloud. Jeffrey wrote it down. Then Shelby opened the sealed slip. The office scale was 80 pounds low. "Is that bad?" Jasmine asked. "On this load, it's adjustable," Jeffrey said. He entered a calibration setting and had the truck leave the deck. The display returned to 0. The truck came back for a second pass. This time, the difference was 20 pounds. Jeffrey adjusted once more. On the third pass, the office scale matched the certified weight exactly. Nobody cheered. Jeffrey simply looked through the window at the truck, then back at the indicator. "Again," he said. The fourth pass matched. The truck left the deck and parked in the turnout. Jasmine watched the display settle cleanly at 0. Shelby came inside and placed both weight sheets on the counter. "That's a working scale," she said. "It still needs witness certification," Jeffrey replied. "But it works." "Yes." Jasmine connected nothing to the printer. She entered the 4 tests in the maintenance ledger and had Jeffrey sign beneath them. Shelby signed as the load provider. The useful result was visible from the road. A loaded commercial truck had crossed the scale, and the old office had weighed it correctly 4 times. Drivers passing on North Main Street slowed to look. Shelby took a photograph of the indicator and the certified slip side by side. "Can I send this to my business partner?" she asked. "Only the weight result, not the code records." Agreed. The strength test had also passed. Shelby handed Jasmine the certified result and added it to the conditions file for the draft agreement. "You've met the material condition," Shelby said. "Title and access are now the real questions. And the permit. Permit follows if the other pieces are sound." The scale test gave Shelby enough reason to keep the proposed supply window open. She extended the sample deadline by 2 weeks, allowing Jasmine time to obtain the recorded instrument and arrange a formal calibration witness. It was the first deadline that had moved in Jasmine's favor. They removed the cones and swept the deck. Jeffrey left to return the borrowed radio. Shelby followed in her truck. Jasmine stayed to file the weight sheets. A shadow crossed the office window. Brian stood outside near the scale. He had parked at the equipment gate and walked over. His boots were clean, which meant he had arrived after the work ended. He came inside without knocking. "I saw Shelby's truck," he said. "We calibrated the indicator. You ran a quarry truck across the scale. A truck used my entrance and my scale. What was in it?" "Stone from Shelby's yard. Did you print a ticket?" "No." He looked toward the printer. Its cable remained disconnected. "What are you planning to print?" "Proper records when the system is certified." "Records for what?" "Any lawful load I'm authorized to weigh." Brian picked up one of the blank ticket books. Jasmine took it from his hand and returned it to the counter. "Don't touch the records." His face hardened. "Those records cover my land. They document the scale system Dad left me. Then give me copies. When I know what they mean. You brought Jeffrey and Shelby into family records. I brought people into my office to do work I hired them to do." "You hired Jeffrey?" "Yes." "With what money?" "Mine." Brian looked around at the new steps, dry ceiling, working display, and organized binders. He had expected disorder. The competence in front of him felt like an accusation, though Jasmine had said nothing about him. "You can't reopen this place around us," he said. "I'm not going around anyone." "You didn't ask." "I'm done asking to use what already belongs to me." He stared at the printer again. The scale had stopped being an abandoned machine. It could produce records, support shipments, and interfere with the simple division Brian believed had already been settled. He pointed at the data cable. "Don't connect that until we talk. You don't control it. We'll see." Brian walked back toward the equipment gate. Before getting into his truck, he took several pictures of the repaired office, the scale deck, and Shelby's tire tracks in the gravel. Jasmine closed the program panel and locked it with the key-marked panel. Then she placed the code cards in the file cabinet and changed the office door lock. The new lock lasted until Monday morning, before someone taped a notice over it. Jasmine found the paper at 7:30. It came from the county building office and required her to schedule an inspection before any further commercial use. Repairs could continue, but the office couldn't serve as an occupied dispatch site. The scale couldn't be used for business until the building passed. A handwritten note at the bottom referred to photographs of a loaded truck. Jasmine called from the front step. The inspector checked the file while she explained that the truck had carried Shelby's stone and produced no ticket. "Was the scale being tested for future commercial use?" he asked. "Yes." "Then the notice applies. I had temporary power approval for repairs and safety work, not business operation. We weren't selling anything. I understand. You can keep repairing. You'll need handrails on the steps, the mold removed, safe heat, and the damaged wiring replaced before re-inspection." "What damaged wiring?" "The complaint photos show an extension cord running through the window. That powered an outside work light. Then remove it before inspection." "When can you come?" "Once you certify the listed work is complete." He wasn't angry or suspicious. That made the notice harder to argue with. Brian's photographs had not invented the damaged building. They had simply placed Jasmine's progress in front of someone required to enforce the existing rule. She went inside and read the notice again. The scale still worked. The printer still worked. She could repair both, but she couldn't complete the witnessed commercial calibration until the office passed inspection. Her phone rang. Shelby said, "Brian called my yard. What did he want?" "He told my sales manager I was helping operate an unpermitted quarry. We haven't operated anything. I know that. My partner doesn't." Jasmine sat on the edge of Mark's desk. "Did you explain?" "I explained that we brought a calibration load to your scale. I also explained the agreement is conditional." "What happened?" "The draft is frozen. For how long?" "Until title is authenticated and the county clears the site." "You extended the window." "I did. That was before the complaint." Jasmine looked at Shelby's test request pinned to the wall. "Are you withdrawing it?" "No. The agreement? It was never signed." "I know what it was." Shelby's voice softened. "Jasmine, I can stand beside honest testing. I can't ask my business partner to reserve $620,000 in future purchasing on a family title dispute nobody has examined. So, everything waits on title." "Yes. And Brian knows that now. He asked why I cared about an old scale. I didn't tell him the amount." "What did you tell him?" "That I need lawful local supply, and you asked me to test material." "You didn't have to answer. I deal with him too. He owns equipment I may need someday. I won't lie to him." Jasmine wanted loyalty to be simpler. She wanted Shelby to refuse Brian's call, Jeffrey to ignore every warning, and the county to recognize the difference between work and operation. That wasn't how other people's lives worked. "Thank you for telling me," Jasmine said. "I'm still here, just not committed. I'm committed to the conditions. So should you be." After the call, Jasmine removed the old carpet. She cut it into strips, rolled each one with the damp side inward, and carried them outside. Beneath it, the concrete floor was stained but solid. The mold covered a section of drywall near the repaired roof corner. She marked the damaged area and called 2 remediation contractors. The first declined when she gave the address. "I heard ownership's being sorted out," the man said. "I own the office." "Maybe so. I don't get between family parcels. You wouldn't enter their parcels. I'm going to pass." The second contractor asked whether Brian had approved access. Jasmine ended the call before answering. By noon, the warning had traveled farther than the truck photographs. Jeffrey arrived carrying the program binder and a paper bag with 2 sandwiches. He read the county notice through his tinted glasses. "Brian called me too," he said. "What did he say?" "That I was working on records belonging to the old quarry." "What did you say?" "That Mark left the system with the office." "Did he threaten you?" "No, he reminded me he owns equipment. Jeffrey sometimes repaired controls and wiring for local operators. Brian didn't have to make a threat. He only had to suggest there would be no future work at the equipment yard." "You can stop," Jasmine said. Jeffrey put the sandwiches on the desk. Is that what you want? No. Then don't offer it because you're afraid I'll take it. I can't promise this turns into work. I know, and Shelby's agreement is frozen. I know that too. She called. Jasmine looked at the maintenance sheet. Jeffrey's hours now covered several days. The old $600 remained unpaid, along with his new rate. She opened her banking app. What are you doing? He asked. Paying you. Wait until the title search. You did the work. Keep enough to finish the building. I'll find another way to finish it. You don't have to prove something by going broke. This isn't proof. She transferred the old $600 and his current wages. The remaining balance barely covered rent and food. Jeffrey's phone sounded in his pocket. He read the payment notice and frowned. You're stubborn in a very expensive way. You said the old debt wasn't mine. It wasn't. The choice to clear it was. He folded the county notice and set it back on the counter. Then I'll help with the wiring. I'm qualified for the repair. Even if I can't sign the building inspection, you charge for that too. Yes, good. They ate sandwiches standing beside the bare concrete floor. Then Jeffrey shut off the breaker and traced the office circuits. The extension cord disappeared into his truck. He replaced one scorched outlet and removed a dead line that had once powered an exterior sign. Jasmine fitted handrails to the new steps. She used lumber left from Shelby's roof work and bought brackets with the last money in her repair budget. By late afternoon, the office was safer and less usable than it had been that morning. The carpet was gone. Furniture crowded the dry side. Plastic covered the open drywall where the mold section had been removed. A truck door closed outside. Noah entered carrying a document envelope. Brian said, "You changed the lock," he said. "Yes. You didn't give us a key. You don't work here." His eyes moved over the exposed wall and stacked furniture. The county shut you down. They required an inspection. Same result. No. He set the envelope on the desk. Inside was a joint notice signed by both brothers. It repeated Brian's refusal of access across their parcels. It also stated that Jasmine had no permission to remove stone, use equipment, or represent herself as operator of their land. "I haven't done any of those things," she said. "Then signing receipt shouldn't bother you. I'm not signing agreement. I'll sign that I received it. That's all we're asking." She wrote "received" beside her name and added the date. Noah gave her a copy. The buyer paused, he said. "Because of me? Because there's an inactive quarry permit and someone testing a commercial scale at the entrance. The permit existed when he made the offer. He didn't think anyone planned to reactivate it. Neither did I. That's supposed to help? It's the truth." Noah walked to the office window. From there, he could see the Hall Road climbing toward North Bench. "He doesn't want an operating quarry beside whatever he develops," he said. "What does he want to develop?" "He hasn't decided, so he wants every option." "Yes, that's what makes land valuable." Jasmine picked up the brother's notice. "Stone is part of land too. Not if you can't reach it." He turned from the window. "You paid the county. Fine. I'll reimburse that amount and add $10,000. Final offer. You added $5,000 after the permit question came up. I added $5,000 because you made repairs. No, you didn't." Noah's patience broke. "What do you want from us?" The old answer rose first. A place in the business, respect for the work she had already done, an explanation for why Mark trusted her with tasks but not decisions. She didn't ask for any of it. "I want a proper title examination," she said. "You have your probate papers. They don't explain the mineral owner code. It's an old code. It was part of the permit record." Noah's face changed slightly. "You found the permit file?" "Yes." "Does it say you own anything under my land?" "No." "Then stop talking like it does. I'm talking like I need an answer. You could cost me the sale over a question, and your sale could close before I know whether you're selling access connected to my estate. You don't have an estate under my land. Maybe not." That answer frightened him more than a claim would have. A claim could be attacked. Uncertainty made buyers wait. Noah lowered his voice. "Give me copies of the scale records. We'll review them together." "With whom?" "Brian and me." "No." "Why?" "Because both of you decided the answer before reading them." "So you're keeping family records from family. I'm protecting original records until a licensed examiner reviews them. You already found somebody?" "Not yet." Noah picked up his offer. "When you do this, don't pretend it's neutral." "I'm not. This could damage both of us. All three of us." He left without saying goodbye. Jasmine locked the door after him. Then she photographed the brother's notice and added it to the reopening binder. The county recorder's online index accepted the book and entry number from the permit amendment. A result appeared under Mark Elliott's name, filed in 2004. The description used terms Jasmine didn't understand and referred to several earlier entries. A certified copy could be ordered. A complete title examination cost more than the money left in her repair account. She called the licensed examiner recommended by the county records desk and explained the office, the scale ticket fields, the permit reference, and the current parcel division. The examiner asked whether Jasmine wanted a limited document reading or the full chain. "What's the difference?" Jasmine asked. "A limited reading tells you what this instrument appears to say. A full chain tests whether it still controls, how it connects to the will, and which current parcels it affects." The full examination meant using most of her next paycheck and taking another unpaid day to gather originals. It also meant notifying Noah and Brian before any formal conclusion, because their current parcels would be examined. Jasmine looked at the notice they had signed. "Full chain," she said. She authorized the work, ordered the certified instrument, and provided both brothers' contact information. Then she connected the repaired printer to the terminal without advancing the paper and locked the office for the night. The certified copy arrived 3 days later in a stiff county envelope. Jasmine didn't open it at home. She carried it to the office and placed it beside Mark's code cards. The seal across the envelope flap remained unbroken until Jeffrey arrived. "You don't need me for that," he said. "I know." "Then why'd you wait?" "Because I'm tired of being the only person in the room when something changes." Jeffrey took off his coat and sat near the wall heater. The heater had been repaired that morning, and warm air moved through the office for the first time since Mark's death. Jasmine opened the envelope. The recorded instrument was 9 pages long. Mark's name appeared several times. So did terms she understood separately, but not together. Surface estate, mineral estate, operational access, successors, and assigns. A map attached to the back showed the old parent tract, before it had been divided into the current parcels. "Does it say what I think?" she asked. Jeffrey read one paragraph, then moved the page farther from his face. "I weigh trucks. You also worked here when he filed it. I still weigh trucks." He pointed to Abigail Patel's business card on the desk. "Call the person you're paying to know." Abigail had already received electronic copies of the permit file, Mark's will, the probate distribution, and the current parcel list. She had asked Jasmine to call when the certified instrument arrived. Jasmine placed the call on speaker. Abigail answered from her office and asked Jasmine to read the recorder's certification number. Then she confirmed it against the county index. "The copy is authentic," Abigail said. "Don't write on it or remove the attached map." "What did Mark keep?" Jasmine asked. "Let me separate what I can confirm from what still needs matching." In 2004, Mark divided the surface ownership from a retained mineral and operational access estate. Jasmine sat down. Jeffrey removed his safety glasses and cleaned them with the edge of his shirt. "Did he sell the surface?" Jasmine asked. "He arranged for the surface parcels to pass separately. The retained estate stayed in his name, and the will language conveys the scale office, its record system, and the retained estate attached to them. That language matches the recorded instrument. So I own the minerals. You own the retained estate described in the instrument. I'm not ready to state the current parcel scope." "Why not?" "The attached map uses the old parent tract. That tract was divided and renumbered. I can trace most of the changes through the public records, but one split created 4 current North Bench parcels. Your scale system appears to contain the operating link between the old source areas and those current numbers." Jasmine looked at the disconnected printer cable. "What happens if the ticket names them?" "I match the ticket's parcel entries to the current deeds, the permit history, and the recorded chain. The ticket does not create title. It confirms how Mark's recorded estate was applied in operation. And if it doesn't name them, then I continue through survey records. It takes longer and costs more." Jasmine had no more money for longer. "Can you tell whether Noah and Brian received surface only?" she asked. "I can tell what the estate distribution intended. I won't certify the final chain until I examine their deed copies against the recorded transfers. They've been notified." "Yes, neither has sent me a deed." Jasmine wasn't surprised. Abigail asked whether the scale was ready for a witness ticket. "The weight is accurate," Jeffrey said. "Printer's repaired. Building still needs inspection." "Who is that?" Abigail asked. "Jeffrey Dunn," Jasmine said. He operated the scale when Mark changed the codes. I'll need his maintenance and calibration records. He has them. Jeffrey glanced at Jasmine. She nodded. I'll send copies, he said. Abigail scheduled a visit for the following week. She would bring the certified chain she had assembled and compare the live ticket with the parcel records. Her fee covered one site meeting. If the brothers attend, Abigail said, I can explain the conclusion to everyone at the same time. They don't know what you found. They know their parcels are under examination. That isn't the same thing. No. You decide how much to tell them before the meeting. After the call, Jeffrey sat quietly. Did Mark ever tell you he kept access rights? Jasmine asked. No. Would you have stayed if you knew? Stayed where? At the quarry. He cut my hours because there wasn't enough shipping. Knowing a land term wouldn't have created loads. He could have explained. He could have explained a lot. Jasmine placed the instrument back in its envelope. She had wanted its meaning to answer something personal. Why Mark left the office to her. Why he hid the code cards behind the panel. Why he trusted her to repair things, but never gave her a title while he was alive. The papers answered ownership more easily than they answered him. Jeffrey put his glasses back on. He built the record so the stone could be followed. That doesn't mean he built it for me. No, I could have sold the office before finding any of this. Yes, maybe that was the test. Mark liked systems. He wasn't wise enough to design people's lives as tests. Jasmine gave him a look. That's a compliment to both of you, he said. They spent the afternoon preparing for building inspection. Jeffrey enclosed the repaired wiring and labeled the panel. Jasmine sealed the bare concrete floor, installed smoke detectors, and replaced the warped back door threshold. Shelby arrived with a proper handrail cap and helped fit it over the front steps. She read Abigail's preliminary findings while the sealant dried. So it's real, Shelby said. Part of it is real. The retained estate. Yes, and the current parcels. The ticket has to match them. Shelby looked through the window at North Bench. If it covers all 4 areas, your draft agreement is possible. If I get surface access, you may already have operational access. Having a right and using it against my brothers aren't the same thing. They refused you. They thought they owned everything. They also called the county in my yard. Jasmine pressed the rail cap into place while Shelby drove the final screws. I could force the issue, Jasmine said. You could. I could let Noah's buyer discover it during closing. That would get his attention. It would also make the buyer pay for a family argument he didn't create. Shelby sat back on her heels. What do you want instead? Written surface use payments, scheduled haul windows, safety rules, reclamation funded from every load, for Noah and Brian, for whoever owns the surface. If Noah sells, the terms follow the operation. And if they say no, then I don't extract. Shelby stared at her. You'd leave $620,000 on the table? I'd leave your agreement unsigned until the quarry can run without treating their land as disposable. That agreement pays for stone. It doesn't pay you to be agreeable. It also doesn't pay me to become Brian. Shelby looked toward the equipment yard. He'd love hearing that. He won't. Good. They completed the handrail before dark. The county inspection took place the following morning. Jasmine walked the inspector through every repair. He tested the outlets, checked the heater clearance, pressed on the handrails, and inspected the removed mold area. The wall needs a finished surface before residential occupancy, he said. I'm not using the apartment yet. For office use, this passes. He removed the orange placard from the window and signed the release. Commercial scale operation remained subject to weight certification and the quarry permit, but the building itself could now function as an office. Authority had not given Jasmine a quarry. It had confirmed that her work met the same requirements anyone else would face. She placed the release in the reopening binder. With the placard gone, sunlight entered the front window without turning orange. Jeffrey moved Mark's desk beneath it. Shelby returned the folding chairs from the storage shed at her yard. They arranged the office for the title meeting. The scale printer remained connected but powered off. Jeffrey installed a fresh top roll without disturbing the preserved yellow duplicate. He checked the sequence window and recorded the visible number. Shelby arranged another loaded truck with a certified weight. This time, the printer would run a complete ticket cycle. The truck could reach the scale without crossing either brother's surface parcel. Jasmine wrote a proposed access agreement in ordinary language. It required payment to surface owners for each load. limited operating hours, dust control, marked routes, safety responsibility, and a reclamation reserve. She made 2 copies, one for Noah and one for Brian. Jeffrey read it at the counter. "You're offering to pay them before they ask," he said. "They own the surface. If Abigail says your access right already covers the haul road, you may not owe this much. Legal access isn't the same as good cooperation. They didn't offer you good cooperation. I'm not writing their terms." That evening, Jasmine called Noah first. "I received a preliminary title finding," she said. "There's a retained estate tied to the office." "What kind of estate?" "Mineral and operational access." He didn't answer. "The current parcel scope still needs to be matched," she continued. "Abigail Patel will do that at the scale next Thursday." "Who is Abigail Patel?" "A licensed title examiner. You hired someone without us. I gave her your contact information. She asked for your deeds. I'm not sending deeds to someone I've never met. Bring them Thursday." Noah's voice became careful. "Are you claiming my land?" "No. I'm telling you Mark separated 2 forms of ownership." "That doesn't make sense." "Come hear it from Abigail." "What about Brian?" "I'm calling him next." Brian's response was shorter. "This is ridiculous," he said. "Bring your deeds. You have the probate list." "Bring the deeds." "Are you planning to run that printer in front of us?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because the scale record has to be tested under the same system Dad maintained. And if we don't come, Abigail will finish her work without you." Brian ended the call. Jasmine sent both brothers the meeting time, Abigail's license information, the county building release, and the first page of the proposed access terms. She did not send the certified instrument. They would receive copies when Abigail explained it. Holding it back would have been easier. So, would waiting until Noah's sale failed. Jasmine wanted them in the room before the result changed what each sibling believed had been inherited. Noah confirmed attendance before midnight. Brian did not reply until the next morning. "I'll be there." "No ticket changes my deed." Jasmine printed his message and placed it beside the brother's notice. Then she set the sealed certified instrument in front of the silent printer and began checking the room for Thursday. She moved the folding chairs twice before deciding they belonged in a half circle facing the printer. The brothers arrived separately. Noah came first, with a leather folder under one arm. He glanced at the new county release in the window, but didn't comment. Brian arrived 10 minutes later, carrying his deed in a clear plastic sleeve. He stopped when he saw Shelby beside the counter. "This is a family title meeting," he said. "She provided the calibration load," Jasmine replied. "And Jeffrey? He maintains the system." Brian looked at the 2 extra chairs. "Who else?" "Abigail." Noah opened his folder. "We should settle something before she gets here." Jasmine remained standing behind Mark's desk. "What?" "My buyer is willing to continue if you confirm you're not claiming ownership of our surface parcels." "I'm not claiming your surface." "Then say it in writing. I already wrote proposed surface use payments. That makes it sound like you have a right to operate across my land." "That's what Abigail is examining." Brian placed his deed on the counter. "There's nothing to examine. This is my parcel. Dad left it to me." "Did you read the description of the estate conveyed?" Jasmine asked. "I read my deed. That isn't what I asked. It says I own the land." Noah gave Jasmine a warning look. "You're treating old scale codes like they overrule probate." "No. The recorded instrument existed before probate." "What instrument?" "The one Abigail will explain. You could have sent it. I could have. You could have sent her your deeds." Brian pulled his chair away from Shelby's. "I didn't hire her." The door opened before Jasmine answered. Abigail Patel entered with a hard document case and a rolled map. She wore a gray coat and carried no more papers than she needed. After confirming everyone's name, she asked Noah and Brian for their deed copies. Brian handed his over first. "I want it clear that I'm not consenting to any claim," he said. "Providing a document for examination does not create consent," Abigail replied. Noah gave her his folder. "My buyer needs to know whether the office parcel has any authority over mine." "The office parcel doesn't," Abigail said. "A retained estate may." Brian leaned back. "That's wordplay. It's ownership language." Abigail examined the recorder stamps, compared the legal descriptions with her certified copies, and placed both deeds beside Mark's old parent tract map. While she worked, the Cookstone truck pulled into the turnout. Shelby checked the certified weight slip with the driver, then brought the sealed copy inside. Jeffrey powered the scale indicator. The display settled at 0. Abigail looked toward the truck. Before this proceeds, I want everyone to understand what the ticket can and cannot establish. It does not create mineral ownership. It can connect Mark's operating system to the current parcel numbers. The recorded chain determines ownership. Brian crossed his arms. A printer can say anything somebody types into it. That's why I reviewed the program history, permit amendment, maintenance records, preserved duplicate sequence, and recorded documents. You reviewed what Jasmine gave you. I reviewed public records independently. Noah turned to Jasmine. If this doesn't show what you think, does this stop? It answers the question either way. That isn't an answer. Yes, it is. The truck rolled onto the scale. Jeffrey watched from the interior window and guided it forward with one hand. When the truck was centered, he signaled the driver to set the brakes and shut down the engine. The indicator climbed toward the certified weight. It stopped on the same number. Jeffrey wrote it in the calibration ledger and handed the sealed public scale slip to Abigail. She opened it and compared the two figures. They match, she said. Jasmine stood at the terminal. Jeffrey had set the transaction type to calibration, no sale. The customer and price fields remained blank. The source field waited. Brian rose. That load didn't come from North Bench. No, Jeffrey said. The weight is from Shelby's yard. We're testing the stored North Bench program without recording a commercial load. So, it's a fake ticket. It's a calibration ticket. It will say that. Jasmine entered NB. The terminal displayed ME-1 beneath it. A new prompt appeared. Load current surface table. Jeffrey moved closer to the screen. That's the link. What happens if she selects yes? Noah asked. The terminal prints the current parcel schedule stored for that source, Jeffrey said. Stored when? Before Mark shut regular shipping down. Brian pointed at Jasmine. She could have changed it. Jeffrey shook his head. Program changes create a maintenance entry and break the checksum. This table hasn't been changed. Abigail took a printed report from her case. The terminal checksum matches the last one filed with the permit inspection. Brian sat down again. Jasmine pressed yes. 4 parcel numbers appeared on the screen. She recognized their endings from the probate list. 2 assigned to Noah and 2 assigned to Brian. For a moment, nobody spoke. Jeffrey connected the printer data cable and checked the sequence window. The visible ticket number followed the last preserved duplicate entry without a gap. Ready, he said. Jasmine pressed print. The machine began with a low hum. The repaired roller caught the paper and advanced it steadily. The sound became the quick mechanical chatter Jasmine remembered from years of standing beside Mark. A white ticket emerged. The yellow duplicate wound beneath it, keeping the sequence intact. Jeffrey waited until the printer stopped before tearing off the white copy. He handed it to Abigail. At the top, the ticket read, calibration, no sale. Below the weight and source code, the surface field listed the 4 complete legal parcel numbers. The mineral owner field read ME-1. Abigail placed Noah's deed beside the ticket. Read the first 2 parcel numbers, she said. Noah did. His voice slowed on the second one. They're mine. They are the surface parcels conveyed to you, Abigail said. Brian pulled the ticket closer. The final 2 numbers matched the deed inside his plastic sleeve. This only proves Dad entered our land in the scale, he said. It proves the operating system linked North Bench to your surface parcels and a separate mineral owner field, Abigail replied. Now we follow that link through the recorded chain. She unrolled the old parent tract map and covered it with a clear current parcel overlay. The 4 North Bench parcels settled inside Mark's original tract. Then she opened the certified instrument from 2004. Mark severed the surface estate from the mineral and operational access estate 21 years before his death, she said. He arranged the surface parcels to pass separately. He retained the minerals and defined access necessary for the existing quarry operation, subject to safety, surface protection, and reclamation. Noah searched his deed. Abigail pointed to a paragraph near the end. Your deed conveys the surface estate described here. It does not convey the retained estate recorded under this entry. She showed Brian the same language in his document. He read it twice. That isn't how Dad explained the land, he said. What did he explain? Jasmine asked. He said the quarry ground was ours. Ours could mean all 3 of us. He meant me and Noah. Noah looked up sharply. You don't know that. Brian turned to him. You heard him. I heard what I wanted to hear. The admission left the room quiet. Abigail opened Mark's will to the office provision. The sentence Jasmine had seen during probate included the scale office, its record system, and any retained Quarry estate attached to their operation. The will conveyed that retained estate to Jasmine, Abigail said. The continuous ticket system authenticates the current operating parcel link. The recorded instrument creates the right. The will passes it. Noah sat with both hands around his folder. "So I can sell the surface," he said. "Yes," Abigail replied. "You must disclose the retained estate. Any buyer takes the surface subject to it, and she can cross it whenever she wants?" "No. Operational access has conditions. It must be reasonably necessary, safely exercised, and consistent with the permit and reclamation duties." Brian looked at Jasmine. "You planned this? I found it. You paid the county because you knew. I paid before Abigail read the instrument. You got Shelby involved, after the scale showed North Bench. You were going to let us sell land with this under it. I invited you here before title was certified. Shelby photographed the ticket beside the certified weight slip and sent the image to her business partner. A reply appeared almost at once. Shelby read it silently, then turned the phone face down. The sentence was blunt, but the room was more complicated than that. Noah stared at the parcel numbers. The office he had offered to clear for an entrance held the working record that tied his sale land to a retained Quarry estate. Brian's equipment could process stone, but he couldn't lawfully authorize extraction from North Bench by himself. Jasmine had no loader, no haul road agreement, and no operating permit. She couldn't reopen by herself either. The proof had not replaced one owner with another. It had removed the belief that either side could act alone. Jasmine placed the proposed access agreements in front of her brothers. "I'm not taking your surface," she said. "I'm offering payment for scheduled use, plus dust control, safety limits, and reclamation money from every load." Brian didn't touch his copy. "You expect me to help you quarry under my land. I expect all of us to decide whether it can be done responsibly. You could block Noah's sale with this. I could refuse an operation. I'm not refusing his sale." Noah read the first page. The buyer would receive surface payments if he accepts the operating terms. "And the access route stays marked?" "Yes." "Limited hours?" "Yes." Brian pushed his copy back. "No." Jasmine left it in front of him. Abigail gathered the certified chain into 3 sets. She gave one to each sibling and kept the original examination in her case. "My conclusion is final," she said. The retained mineral and operational access estate passed to Jasmine. It affects all 4 North Bench surface parcels shown on the calibration ticket. Noah closed his folder. Brian looked through the office window at the repaired scale. The deck settled after the truck pulled away, and the indicator returned to 0. The land had not moved. The numbers had only made its divided ownership impossible to ignore. Abigail let the silence remain for a moment, then closed her document case. "If anyone wants a separate examination, you're entitled to get one," she said. "Use a licensed examiner and give them the complete chain, not one deed." Brian stood. "I'm getting my own. That's your choice." He took his certified set and left the access agreement on the table. Noah watched him cross the scale deck. "He'll cool off?" Jasmine gathered the loose papers. "Does he?" "Eventually." "He waits until everyone else gets tired." Noah didn't answer. Abigail asked Jasmine to sign the receipt for the completed examination. Her work was finished. She had confirmed the rule preserved in the records. What the family did with it belonged to them. After she left, Shelby took her truck's calibration ticket and certified weight slip. Jeffrey filed the yellow duplicate without separating it from the roll. Noah remained in his chair. "What happens if Brian refuses?" he asked. "No activity on his surface parcels. But you still own the minerals. I'm not entering without written operating terms. You may already have legal access. Legal access tells us what I can insist on. It doesn't tell us how trucks pass safely." Noah read the payment section again. Each commercial load would produce a surface use payment. A separate amount would go into a reclamation reserve. Dust control, road maintenance, and damage responsibility were assigned to the operator. "You wrote this before you knew the result," he said. "Yes." "Why?" "Because owning minerals doesn't repair someone else's road." He tapped the transfer paragraph. "If I sell, the buyer steps into this. If the buyer agrees. And if he doesn't, I don't operate across his parcel. The retained access still appears in his title." "Yes." Noah rubbed his forehead. The sale he wanted was still possible, but it was no longer simple. He would have to disclose the quarry rights, explain scheduled use, and accept a lower range of possible buyers. Jasmine had paid $24,000 to keep her property. Noah would pay through delay and reduce control. Neither cost erased the other. "Dad should have told us," he said. "He should have. I thought the land was mine. The surface is. You know what I mean." "Yes." He waited for her to soften it. She didn't. "What do you want me to do today?" he asked. "Send the certified chain to your buyer. Give him this proposal. If he wants changes, he talks to both of us. Not through me, not only through you." Noah looked toward the window. "You don't trust me. I trusted you to solve things for me. That isn't the same as trusting you beside me." The sentence hurt him, and she let it. He took the agreement and left without signing. Shelby stayed near the door. "That went better than I expected," she said. "No one threw anything. That was my standard. It isn't mine?" Shelby nodded. "Good." She reopened the draft supply agreement on her tablet. The material condition was complete. The title condition could now be marked complete. Surface access, permit approval, safety planning, and final scale certification remained open. "I can take this back to my partner," she said. "When?" "Today." "Do you still need 2 years?" "Yes." "Same volume, if you can supply it?" "Limited hours may reduce the monthly amount. Then we extend the delivery calendar. I need reliability more than speed." They spent an hour changing the schedule. Jasmine refused any minimum that would force unsafe production during winter. Shelby refused to reserve purchasing volume without missed delivery terms. They disagreed over storage, truck waiting time, and who paid for retesting if material quality changed. It was the first negotiation Jasmine had ever held for the quarry where nobody expected her work to be free. When they finished, Shelby saved the revised draft. "I'll sign after both surface routes are settled," she said. "One route may be enough." "Is it?" Jasmine looked at Mark's map. Noah's northern parcel connected North Bench to one part of the service road. Brian's southern parcel connected that road to the equipment yard and the broadest turn toward the scale. A smaller route could be built entirely across Noah's side, but it would disturb ground that had not been used for hauling. The safer existing route crossed both. "No," Jasmine said, "not for the plan I want." "Then don't pretend Brian doesn't matter, because he left." The following week, Noah returned with changes from his buyer. The buyer accepted the retained estate if haul hours ended before evening, and the road boundary was surveyed. He also wanted the right to inspect reclamation records. Jasmine agreed to those points. She added a requirement that any new surface owner receive notice before work began. Noah signed the conditional surface use agreement at Mark's desk. He used his own pen and read every page first. When he finished, he slid the document toward her. "I'm not saying I handled this well. You're not saying you didn't. I'm saying I should have read the deed. That's true. I thought keeping the sale together was my job. You made it everyone's job without asking." Noah nodded once. He wasn't ready to name everything he had done. Jasmine wasn't ready to treat one signature as repair. She signed the agreement and gave him a copy. Before leaving, he placed a new key on the desk. "The equipment gate," he said. "Temporary access for surveying only. Text first." Brian had changed the code, but Noah controlled the northern side and could authorize entry there. The key did not open the equipment yard. Jasmine picked it up. "Written surveying permission?" "In the agreement," she checked. "It was. Thank you," she said. The courtesy felt strange between them, which was proof of how little they had practiced it. They surveyed the northern route 2 days later. Jasmine, Shelby, and Jeffrey stayed within the marked permission. The existing road was safer, just as Jasmine had expected. Building a new route across Noah's ground would cost more, disturb more soil, and put trucks on a steeper turn. Brian's cooperation remained necessary. He did not call for 11 days. Then he appeared at the office near closing time. Jasmine was patching the rear drywall. Jeffrey had gone home. Shelby was at her yard. Brian carried no deed and no folder. "I had someone read the title," he said. Jasmine set down the putty knife. "What did they say?" "The same thing." He looked irritated by the answer. "Do you have a copy of my access terms?" she asked. "You gave me one. Did you read it?" "Most of it. Read all of it." He walked to the printer, where the calibration ticket remained in a clear sleeve. "You could use my loader," he said. "We're discussing surface access. The loader affects access. You can't move enough material with borrowed equipment. Are you offering it? I'm offering to operate. Under whose safety plan? Mine. Then no? His head turned. You need equipment. I need an operation that can pass inspection. I've run that quarry longer than you've been inside it. You've run machines. Dad held the permit. I know the ground. And you warned contractors away before knowing what I owned. I was protecting my property. So am I. Brian moved closer to the desk. What do you want? An apology? No. I want written responsibility. For what? Equipment condition, trained operators, dust limits, haul hours, fuel handling, road damage, reclamation. That's business paperwork. Yes, we're family. That didn't lower my county bill. He looked away. Jasmine opened a clean copy of the agreement. You can receive surface use payments like NOAA. If your equipment is used, that's a separate paid contract. Jeffrey approves the scale and electrical controls. Shelby approves the material schedule. The permit plan controls everyone. Even you? Especially me. Brian read the first page standing up. He objected to the reclamation reserve. He said the dust limits were unnecessary. He wanted equipment repairs deducted before surface payments. Jasmine refused all three changes. Then use Noah's side, he said. I won't cut a new road just to avoid asking you to act responsibly. You'd let the agreement die? Yes. He searched her face for a bluff and didn't find one. Brian took the papers home. 3 days later, he returned with notes in the margins. Most protected his equipment. 2 improved the safety section. 1 required Jasmine to suspend hauling if road damage reached the drainage channel. She accepted that one. They argued for nearly 2 hours. Brian never apologized for the calls, the photographs, or the way he had treated the office as proof she didn't belong. Jasmine did not trade those injuries for his signature. He signed because idle equipment earned nothing, because the title was real, and because written limits gave him a role he understood. Afterward, Jasmine gave him no office key. Operations only, she said. Scheduled access. Brian's mouth tightened. Then he nodded. With both surface agreements complete, Shelby returned with the final supply document. She and Jasmine signed at the counter. The $620,000 was not paid that day. It would be earned load by load only after permits, inspections, and delivery. Jeffrey signed a separate part-time employment agreement with set hours and wages. No unpaid Sundays, Jasmine said. No Sunday calls at all, he replied. Unless the scale's on fire. If it's on fire, call the fire department. She gave him the first regular office key. The quarry permit application went in the following morning with the title chain, access agreements, safety plan, reclamation account, material results, and scale records attached. The office was no longer waiting for permission from the family. It was waiting for inspection under terms all 3 siblings had signed. The inspection happened 9 days later. Jasmine met the state inspector at the equipment gate with copies of the signed agreements. Brian arrived with the loader maintenance records. Noah came because the northern haul route crossed his surface parcel. The inspector walked the marked route first. He checked drainage, turning space, sight lines, and the distance between the road and the property boundary. At North Bench, he examined the limited extraction area Jasmine had proposed. Who stops work if dust crosses this line? He asked. I do, Jasmine said. Brian opened his mouth. The inspector looked at him. Who holds the operating estate? Jasmine, Brian said. Then she stops work. Brian nodded. They continued to the fuel area. Brian showed the containment tray and inspection tags. He knew the machines, and Jasmine let him answer equipment questions. When the inspector asked about load records, she took over. At the office, Jeffrey demonstrated the scale reset, duplicate roll, and maintenance log. The inspector selected an old ticket number and asked Jeffrey to trace it. Jeffrey found the yellow duplicate, the matching source code, and the corresponding entry in the permit file. No missing entries after restart? The inspector asked. None, Jeffrey said. Who controls the ticket sequence? Jasmine held up the program key. Jeffrey and I? Changes require both signatures. The inspector examined the restored office, emergency plan, and calibration records. He found 2 corrections. A warning sign near the scale was too small. 1 drainage barrier needed another anchor. That's it? Jasmine asked. That's what I found. When we correct them, send photographs. If they match the plan, limited operation can begin. Brian waited until the inspector left. I had a larger sign in the equipment shed, he said. Can we use it? Yes. Put the loan on the equipment sheet. It's a sign. It still belongs to me. All right. He had expected irritation. Her agreement gave him nothing to fight. Noah helped drive the second anchor into the drainage barrier. He wasn't good with the heavy hammer. After his third bad swing, Jasmine took it from him. You're enjoying this, he said. A little. He stepped back. Fair. They sent the photographs that afternoon. The permit approval arrived the next morning, with limits matching Jasmine's plan. The quarry could operate 4 days a week during daylight hours. Extraction was confined to the marked North Bench area. Every load required a scale ticket, dust control, surface use payment, and a deposit into the reclamation reserve. Jasmine printed the approval and placed it in the reopening binder. Then she called Shelby. Tuesday, Shelby said. 2 loads to start. Not 10, 2. Let's learn what goes wrong. Something always did. On Tuesday, the first Cookstone truck reached North Bench shortly after 8. Brian loaded it while Jasmine watched the marked cut line. The bucket entered the pale stone face and came away full. Noah stood beside the service road with his hands in his coat pockets. I thought this would feel stranger, he said. It does from up here. Dad would have started with 6 trucks. Dad had years of road work behind him. He also hated starting small. That's why we're starting small. The loaded truck followed the watered hall road to the office. Jeffrey guided it onto the scale. Jasmine entered the source and checked the surface parcel before authorizing print. The printer chattered. The first commercial ticket carried Shelby's customer code, the North Bench source, the correct surface parcel, and Jasmine's mineral owner field. Jeffrey handed the driver the white copy. The yellow duplicate remained wound inside. Shelby waited at her yard and called after the load arrived. Weight matches, she said. Stone looks clean. The second truck leaves in 20 minutes. Send it. The second load crossed Brian's parcel. Jasmine entered his surface code, and the system calculated the agreed payment. Another portion moved into the reclamation reserve. Nobody received a fortune that morning. Fuel, wages, testing, surface payments, and road water came first. The office earned enough to cover them, with a narrow amount left for the next operating day. Jeffrey examined his pay statement before accepting it. You counted setup time, he said. You set up. Mark didn't. I'm not Mark. No, Jeffrey said. You aren't. The difference no longer sounded like a failure. The next week tested the agreements more honestly. A dry wind rose before noon and carried dust toward the northern boundary. Brian had 3 loads remaining on his schedule. Jasmine radioed him. Shut down loading. We can finish before it gets worse. The monitor crossed the limit. 1 reading. The agreement doesn't say 2. Brian looked down from the loader cab. Even at a distance, she could see his frustration. Shelby's empty truck waited near the scale. Stopping meant a missed delivery and another day of equipment costs. Brian keyed his radio. You're paying standby. Under the equipment contract, yes. And Shelby? I'll handle Shelby. He wanted to continue. Jasmine knew it. He also knew the dust clause had been one of the terms he signed, after refusing nearly everything else. The loader bucket lowered to the ground. Shutting down, he said. Shelby was unhappy about the missed loads. She did not praise Jasmine for protecting the boundary. I need them Thursday, she said. You'll have them if conditions allow. And if they don't, I buy replacement material from your current supplier and cover the difference under our missed delivery term. That'll cost you. I know. The wind eased by Thursday. The loads arrived on time, and Jasmine didn't have to buy replacements. A month later, Shelby rejected 1 shipment because too much fine material had entered the mix. Brian said the stone looked the same. Jeffrey said the ticket weight was correct. Jasmine went to Shelby's yard and stood beside the rejected pile. Shelby handed her the screen results. This isn't what the agreement specifies. Jasmine checked the numbers. No. You want to argue? No, I want a sample from the cut. They traced the problem to loose material near the edge of the working face. Jasmine replaced the load at quarry cost and marked the area out of production until Brian cleaned it. After that, Shelby stopped treating the quarry as a fragile favor. She called Jasmine when deliveries were late and paid Jasmine when they were right. Noah's sale closed with the retained estate and operating agreement disclosed. The buyer accepted the limited haul schedule and surface payments. Before signing, Noah brought the final documents to the office. He knocked even though the door was open. "Come in," Jasmine said. He placed the papers on the desk. "The Northern Route transfers with these terms." She read the paragraph and nodded. "Looks right. You want Abigail to check it? The buyer's examiner already matched the chain. I'll keep a copy." Noah noticed Mark's old mug on the shelf. Jasmine had washed it, but the faded words remained. "You kept that?" "You bought it." "I forgot. I didn't." He touched the handle but left the mug where it was. "I'm having lunch with Brian," he said. "You can come." "Today?" "Yes, I have trucks until 1. We can wait." That was new. Jasmine joined them after the final ticket printed. Lunch was awkward. Brian complained about the diner coffee. Noah discussed road payments more than anyone wanted. Nobody apologized again. Nobody pretended the estate division had been harmless. When Brian started speaking for the Quarry, Jasmine corrected him. When Noah offered to handle a supplier call, she said Shelby dealt with her directly. They stayed through the whole meal anyway. The office restoration continued between shipments. Jasmine finished the rear wall, installed a compact kitchen, and converted the dry back room into a sleeping area. The residential inspector approved it after she added ventilation and a second exit. She ended her apartment lease when the Quarry had covered 3 steady months of costs. Moving took 1 pickup load: a bed, 2 chairs, kitchen boxes, clothes, and the little table where she had first subtracted the county bill. Shelby helped carry the table inside. "You're sure about living beside a truck scale?" she asked. "I've lived beside railroad tracks." "Fair." Jeffrey brought curtains his grown daughter had stored in his garage. They were too wide, so Jasmine shortened them at the kitchen table. Brian installed a shield over the exterior scale cable. He submitted the work on his equipment sheet and waited for approval before touching the system. Jasmine approved the materials and paid his time. He still didn't have an office key. One evening, he arrived after operations with a replacement step for the loader. "You got coffee?" he asked from the doorway. "Did you wipe your boots?" He looked down, stepped back, and did it. Then yes. By autumn, drivers stopped at the counter for tickets and stayed long enough to warm their hands. Neighbors came to ask about driveway stone, operating hours, or the reclamation work visible from the road. Jasmine answered what she could and wrote down what needed checking. The office had become useful before it became beautiful. Its walls were warm cream. Mark's map hung beneath glass. The code cards remained secured in the program cabinet, not displayed as treasure. The money arrived load by load. So did the bills. Jeffrey's wages were paid every Friday. Surface owners received statements. The reclamation reserve grew slowly, exactly as the agreement required. If stories about young people rebuilding a life after family betrayal matter to you, subscribe and return for the next inheritance story. On the first cold evening of the new season, Shelby returned an empty coffee cup and left the next week's delivery schedule on the counter. Jeffrey closed the ticket ledger, hung his key on the proper hook, and reminded Jasmine that he wasn't answering calls on Sunday. Brian had already parked the loader and signed the maintenance sheet. Noah's surface payment statement waited in a stamped envelope for the morning mail. Jasmine locked the program panel and put soup on the small kitchen stove. The office heater clicked on. Through the glass, the scale deck held the last pale line of evening. She washed 3 cups and left Mark's mug on the shelf. Then she checked the front lock, lowered the kitchen shade halfway, and opened the curtain beside the repaired wall. Jasmine switched on the office lamp at dusk, while the repaired scale settled quietly outside her kitchen window.